Hey guys, it's the WalterFootball.com After the Dark Show for December 26th, 2024. We're going to be doing the Week 17 Fantasy Football Rundown show. So if you have any fantasy questions about your championship, or if you're in a weird league that has Week 18 championship, about your semifinals, just let us know. We'll try to answer anything, including DFS stuff as well. So before we get into the intros, and one pressing issue I have, which I'll discuss in a second. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. As you can see, I'm wearing the free Gruden shirt, same one from last night. Shirt's so nice, I had to wear it twice in a row. So this is how we roll here, especially on Christmas when you don't have to shower or anything. You can get all these merch store, all these shirts here. The Part of Me shirt is back, I think. So yeah, you can get the Part of Me shirt, but who knows when they're going to take it down. So if you guys really want this, I would say get it now. And as you can see, they took down the squirrel shirt, so I'll have to put that back up. These creeps running the site don't like animals apparently. So, but they do have a 25% off sale. So you can get this merch store here. Also, you can go to Amazon, buy my books, Jerks to the College Years. This is the most recent book I've written. It's basically me just making fun of people I saw at Penn State for 6 years. I also wrote an expose about how Brett Favre tried to sabotage Aaron Rodgers during his 2020 MVP season. So how the 2020 MVP was stolen. You can get that on Amazon as well. Also, please consider super chats, super stickers. You guys have been so great with them. Slew and John Sanders, you've been so awesome. Also, Cam Eagle, Dro for show. Jesse Cintron, you guys have been so helpful with your contributions, and these YouTube ads pay nothing, as I always say. So this is the best way to support the show. So please consider that. So we are joined by Kenny. The cap is fake, and Kenny's wearing a Santa hat. And so my grievance here is, like, I had the Santa hat on yesterday for you guys who watched the show yesterday, and I plan to wear it again today. I had it on my desk right here to my left, and it's gone. I don't know where it went. And then I told Kenny this, and he's like, "Well, what'd you say to me?"
Well, it's because I flew to Philadelphia and from Florida, and broke into your house and stole it. So I wanted to wear it tonight. That was the, and I have learned to manipulate the space time continuum so I can travel quickly.
Just to steal my Santa hat,
of course. Now, in the ancient world, there were people who learned how to manipulate the space time continuum. They utilized it to manipulate laws of physics so they could lift heavy objects without machinery to build the pyramids. But today I used those same magical powers just to steal Santa hats.
Well, I think that's considering how upset I was, I guess maybe it was worth it. But I'm jealous that you stole my Santa hat. Mr. Magic says, "Yo, Merry Christmas. Hope it was good. Just wanted to stop by and ask which should you play out of Cup, Keenan, and Garendo." I would not play Garendo against the Lions defense. So Cup, Keenan by default. What do you think?
Yeah. I'm, of the three, I don't think I would have said this 2-3 weeks ago, but Keenan Allen is probably the one I'm most confident in, right? I mean, yeah. So, yeah, I think Cup and Keenan. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I think you can make. It depends on your situation, right? Garendo's got the upside because he's a running back in the Niners offense. But if you want to play it a little bit safer, I think Cup and Keenan are the other plays.
Yeah. For sure. How'd you get last night's hat to Kenny so fast? Well, you know now. Kenny took it from me. Can you change Jerks League to Chooch? Chooch of the week? I don't know. Do you know what that is? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, Chooch. It's it's an idiot, a jerk.
Oh, okay. I never heard of this word. So
No.
well, I guess you learn something new every day. All right, let's we'll get into all the recaps of all the games. And I thought that because this is a weird circumstance where we're actually recapping games of this current week, because for some reason the NFL thought we had to have Wednesday Christmas games. We'll discuss these two games instead of the two games those teams played last week. I think that makes the most sense. So we'll get into that right away, and then we'll get into the older games. So let's get to it here. The first game on today's Wednesday slate on Netflix was Chiefs 29, Steelers 10. I missed the whole first quarter of this game because my parents, their Netflix was their subscription was expired. That was at my parents' house, obviously, with my kids, and their next Netflix subscription was expired, so like they had to like log in and like update and like it's just and it says like QR code. Both my parents are confused, but they're like, "What is a QR code?" I was just like, "Just go to the website." They're like, "No, I don't understand what QR code is," and just go to the website. And so like that was the same thing. So I missed the whole first quarter. I missed the Chiefs scoring their first 2 touchdowns, so I don't really know what happened. But anyway, I don't know if you got to see the entire game. I mean, my impression is that the Chiefs look back, like with Mahomes now having Marquise Brown. Xavier Worthy looks really good now. Like he has some rough moments earlier in the year, some really rough moments, but he looks great now. And they've improved a lot. Running game is still a weakness. But then you get the Steelers, Pat Frymouth. We had his over receiving yard prop, and we hit our same game parlay in this game, so that was nice. So, any thoughts on this game?
The Chiefs look scary. They look very much like last year. Kind of like do the bare minimum to win games, bare minimum to get the 1 seed, or bare minimum to win the division, and then just turn it on. And so off to the races. Their offense was unstoppable today. They had some penalties and they played some sloppy ball in a couple moments, but other than that, if they play clean, I think they're the favorite to win the Super Bowl. That guy's Superman. Patrick Mahomes, that guy's just. It's funny. I was watching with my wife. My wife knows very little about sports, but I love her honest observations. She 2 different times. One time we're watching, and she says, he kind of like breaks away from these defenders. He looks expected to go down, and he kind of just does this like weird toss over the defense. And I can't remember who caught the ball, but it looks like something you play in a backyard game, right? Like backyard football. And my wife goes, "Is that even real? Like, is that like she just like this is she's novice, doesn't know sports. She's watching Mahomes go like he just does things that no one else. What is that? She's like, why can't they just get him down? I'm like, baby, because he's freaking awesome. And then there's another moment where he makes this like bad pass in the end zone, throws the ball into the end zone, bad pass, almost gets picked off. And during the replay, my wife is like, she's like, but like, look at that, like there's all these guys around. Why would he throw the ball? And there's like 3 of the other guys there. I'm like, well, he's trying to like fit it into a window in between guys, And she's like, well, why would he think he could do that? I was like, well, because like 98% of the time he does. And she's just like, I can't believe anyone would ever do that. I was like, baby, I promise. Like that, no one who's seen Mahomes is shocked that he would try that because most of the time, or literally, he's got to win. He's got 3 defenders, and he's trying to squeeze it into a window that often Mahomes can do. Right? I mean, Josh Allen can do that kind of stuff too. There have been other guys throughout the years that can do it, but Mahomes is just a special cat. So it's just funny to watch him go. Yep, this team is back. From fantasy purposes, I don't know. What if it matters, all that much. Because if you had Mahomes your starting quarterback, you probably drafted him too high, and you're probably not in the playoffs, and you're out. So it doesn't matter. But I do suspect that for DFS purposes, if you're a DFS player, I would imagine the Chiefs are going to be slightly underpriced. The algorithms on both DraftKings and FanDuel, they almost always take a couple weeks to catch up. And I foresee that Mahomes and Kelsey will be on fire the next few weeks, but the algorithms will be a week or 2 late. And so I think there's a lot of value maybe over the next week or 2 to play specifically Mahomes and Kelsey in DFS. That's not typically how I build lineups when I used to play DFS, but I think there could be some value there if you're the kind of person that would want to play those kind of guys.
Xavier Worthy too. I think he would be undervalued as well. I captained him in the showdown. It's a weird day because I not only did we hit the same game parlay, I cashed both showdowns, but I did not cash the 2-game slate. Weirdly, and like I played like mostly the same guys, so like I'm still trying to figure out how that happened. But anyway, it was. I mean that was a good lineup. I was actually like pretty close to winning. I didn't have Justin Watson. That was the deal breaker there. You had to have Justin Watson. That got you to better players, obviously, because he was so cheap. But I think my lineup was pretty good. If Justin Watson didn't have a touchdown, I think it may have had a chance of winning it. But anyway, we have a question from another one. Chiggy Chiggy Bang Bang Okonkwo or TJ Hawkinson? Asked Mr. Magic once again.
To start?
to
In a
start.
fantasy, like a season-long league?
Yeah, Chiggy. Well, he's asking Chiggy because Chiggy's been on fire the past 2 weeks. But I would still go with Hawkinson. He's a better player, and it's a good matchup. The Packers aren't that good against tight ends, so it's not like an impossible matchup or something. So yeah.
With all due respect, Mr. Magic, it doesn't matter what the matchups is. Hawkinson's the right answer. You just better player, better offense. I'm not sitting that guy.
Yeah. It's different if it's DFS. Like Chiggy's going to be cheaper, But
in DFS different. Yeah.
Right, 1v1. Like, definitely Hawkinson. So, again, good luck in your championship. All right, let's get to the other game that was today. Ravens 31, Texans 2. This game featured very, very strange halftime show. Some people who commented in the chat called it satanic pedophiles.
I didn't watch it. I didn't know this was a controversy. I've not been on Twitter today, so I didn't see anything.
Well, it was more with the person performing rather than what was done. Although it was, they said it was like the most expensive halftime show ever.
Who was performing?
Beyonce, and then it featured Post Malone and some guy. I don't know his name. It was like Yaboni or something.
I'm not cool. I don't know.
Shabuzi. I have no idea who that person is. I've heard of Post Malone before, although the first time I heard like people talk about Post Malone, I assumed they were talking about Karl Malone because like he like did his work in the Post and stuff. And then like I eventually figured out it was not Karl Malone. Not a true story. That was actually happened. But and then so it was Beyonce, Shabuzi, and Post Malone. I have no idea who Shabuzi is. I posted that Conor McGregor meme on Twitter. I was like, who the F-O-O-K is that guy? To Shabuzi. But no, it was a very weird halftime show. I actually tweeted out, I'm like, can we stop doing music during halftime and like try something else? And someone was like, what? And I'm like, anything, like trivia show or cat race or dog race or jousting, something else. Like do something else. Like this music stuff's so boring. I don't know like who likes it even. Anyway, and it was 31-2 a scoregami. No, it wasn't actually. In 1936, I believe the Patriots beat the Boston Redskins 31-2, if I remember correctly, or someone beat the Boston Redskins 31-2. I was actually looking that up, so it was not scoregami. As far as this game is concerned, I mean, if you had Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, like again, I cashed the showdown. I had both of them. I had Lamar Jackson, the captain. I also put Derrick Henry in there. I thought that was like maybe somewhat unique because like usually people don't like to play quarterback and running back in the same lineup because like it just seems like it's not very it doesn't correlate very well, but I just figured these guys are just going to run all over the Texans, who can't stop the run. They can't stop mobile quarterbacks. We had Lamar Jackson's over 45.5 rushing yards that hit. The Texans, meanwhile, CJ Stroud looks like a broken man. Ever since Tank Dell went down, and like he was like almost crying on the field. Ever since that happened, like he just hasn't looked right. And like he was like bouncing passes to his receivers. I don't know if you said you didn't see the halftime show. I don't know if you saw this full game, but like he was awful. Like he did not look like a starting NFL quarterback. Now maybe that changes. But like, obviously this game already happened in your championship. And if you had any of these guys, you're just not doing very well. Even Joe Mixon, I thought he'd do at least a little bit more. Like this is a tough running matchup. I thought he'd do more in the passing game. Only 2 catches, though. I don't know why they didn't get him involved more. Like, he was catching like 4 or 5 passes a game. He only caught 2 passes here. So, rough game for the Texans. So, what are your thoughts here?
So, I'm in my fantasy championship. I'm in the championship of our league. Mm-hmm. By the way, this is in my I've been in that league now. This is my 19th season and my 8th championship appearance, number 8. I have the most championship appearances of anyone. I am 3 and 4 in championships. So I've lost 4 of the 7 I've been in. Bummer. Anyway, coming into today, according to the ESPN app, it gives you the percentage chances of winning, which is almost always wrong, but whatever. Yeah. It gave me coming into today, it gave me a 54% chance of winning the game. 54% chance is what the ESPN projection was. Well, I had Joe Mixon and Zay Flowers, and he had Lamar Jackson and Travis Kelce. I currently have a 20% chance of winning. So I went from 54% to 20%. So
you're saying there's a chance.
Saying there's a chance. That's right. So, Yeah, so 21% actually. But so I basically need to figure out what I'm going to do with my kickers and tight ends and defense and quarterback, because I pick up waiver wires for those 4 positions pretty much every week. So we'll see what we do there. But anyway, all that to say, I did not watch most of this game. I was cooking a turkey for my family. It was over. We had family over this evening and some friends, people from church and from life, and so lots and lots of fun. And so Kenny, your boy, was making turkey and green beans and Cheddar Bay biscuits.
Oh,
and
so good.
I know. So little red Lobster knockoff action there. Quite fantastic, and we had all kinds of fun stuff. Anyway, enough about my ridiculous cooking skills. I didn't see a lot of this game. I had it on in the background, and I was able to watch. But Lamar Jackson's awesome. If you have him, that's great. Good for you. Well, wonderful. I think that this Texans team is broken, and you can't trust anything. So I think I've had Joe Mixon. I'm a Joe Mixon owner, and Joe Joe Mixon has been terrible for 3 consecutive weeks, and 4 of the last 5 weeks he scored 5 points or less in a typical standard scoring league. So 4 of the last 5 weeks he literally scored 5 points or less. That's really bad. By the way, I don't know if you noticed. I don't know if that's good or not. It's not good. And I just thought, well, it's having an off week, and so I probably should not have started him. Looking back, so it is what it is. You can't go back and undo that. But if you have Texans players and you're in a championship, pour one out because you're probably not going to win.
Yeah, unless you magically had John Mechie or something as like a fill-in. He did okay in PPR, but that was about it. It was a rough scene for the Texans, and I talked about Mixon having a tough schedule, and it goes back to the age-old argument. Like, do you start your studs, or do you look at matchups? And I think it has to do with like your alternatives. Like, if your alternatives are like bums in good matchups, like I think you absolutely have to start Mixon. But if you have like really good players, like not on Mixon's level, but like let's say like you'd spend a second round pick on Mixon or third. What was it, second or third? Like it's like
I got Mixon in our league in the third.
Okay. Well, hypothetically, if you're redrafting right now, Mixon is and the first round pick, I think.
Right.
So like if you have that, and if you have like a third round caliber player, like I think in a really tough matchup, Baltimore, no one can run on Baltimore. I think that you probably start the third round player of Mixon, but if it's like a 7th round player, I think you start Mixon. I think that's how it goes down. Because like if you
depends on
go ahead.
It depends on how you define stud in that case. Where like if people say start, I'm like, yes, I always start your studs no matter what. That's my philosophy. But my definition of a stud is much more narrow. Based on Mixon's performance over the last 5 weeks, he actually is not a stud anymore, right? Like he was a stud, but what he has shown me over the last month is that he and this offense are no longer worthy of being considered studs. So in that case, like, do you start your player that was a stud who's starting to show you who's no longer a stud? And I think I should have, the old adage, when people show you who they are, believe them. I benched Kamara because he was no longer a stud status. I should have benched Mixon. Now my other options are not great. My other options are Kendre Miller for the Saints.
And Kamara might be back, so you couldn't go with him.
I've got Chase Brown as a running back. I put him in my running back spot, and now I've got a flex opportunity. Do I put McMillan for the Buccaneers, or do I pick up there could be a wide receiver or a tight end I could pick up on the waiver wire to put in my flex spot. But I think like with that philosophy, like start your studs. I think sometimes people think that mean like start your studs, start the guys you drafted in the first round, no matter what. Well, like no, if the guy you drafted in the first round is no longer a stud, like, and he's sucking, well, don't no longer consider him a stud. And I made that mistake with Mixon, and I'm probably going to lose this game now. I should have looked at the last 5 weeks and said, hey, this offense has been broken. They've not been able to score effectively consistently for the last 5 weeks. And 4 of those 5 weeks, Mixon has scored 5 points or less. If he scores 5 points or less for me, I'm gonna be in a really tough spot. And he scored 3 points today. So I think sometimes people want to hold on to because they drafted someone high, they continue to consider them a stud when the evidence shows they're no longer a stud.
Yeah, that's fair. Although I do think if you sat Mixon and he scored like 3 touchdowns, you've been like really upset with yourself.
I'd be full tilt. Oh yeah,
yeah. So yeah, it's tough. It's a tough situation. I don't fault you for playing Mixon over a waiver wire guy or even McMillan. Like I think I would have played Mixon over them.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Right. If I had a better option, it'd be a different story.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, Cassandra says something felt off and gross about that halftime show. Hard to explain. Yeah. Well, the person performing probably won't be a free person for much longer. I don't think. Anyway, let's get to let's go back in time. And we have our Kenny's capable of bending the space time continuum, so we can do that here.
That's right.
We go back to last Thursday, which we've had so many games like since this. This feels like 3 weeks ago to me. The Chargers 34, Broncos 27, doesn't it? Like it feels like it occurred like a month ago. But no, it's actually like less than a week. So the Chargers, they won 34-27. This was a close game for a while. I mean, it was close for the entire time, but like the Chargers really took it to the Broncos in the second half. Gus Edwards came out of nowhere he had one drive. Like he only had like one good drive the entire game, but it was an awesome drive. He had a 43-yard run. He had 2 touchdowns. In my my best ball lineup, I had him. I don't even remember drafting him. Like I don't know why I drafted this guy because I hate Gus Edwards, but it must have been my only team where I had Gus Edwards. And he scored 2 touchdowns, 68 yards. So he was great. Ladd McConkey continues to impress. For the Broncos, Bo Nix, the stats look good. Like 263 and 2 touchdowns looks good. But if you look at his passing chart, it's like all short tosses, like really nothing downfield. Big Cortland Sutton over receiving yards. Can't remember if that was in a single bet or parlay. It might have been the single bet, but yeah, Sutton did not get there in his receiving yards prop. I think it was in the 60s. He only had 5 for 50. So this was a pretty discouraging performance. As you can see, Javonte Williams, 7 catches for only 29 yards. That just shows you how conservative Nix was. So if I'm the Broncos, despite the good record at 9-6, I'm pretty concerned going forward with Nix as long as like they're playing tough matchups. But I guess the good news is they play the Bengals this week, and the Bengals are horrible defensively. So any thoughts on this game?
The Gus Edwards thing is gross because he was terrible and then was phased out of the offense, and then Dobbins got hurt, and then he's back in the offense but still not producing, and then all of a sudden, he was like 65% owned in ESPN leagues, then like 56%, then like 41%, and then and then he's only started in like 6% of leagues that even teams that own him. So it's like the week he decides to go off is the week that like no one's benefiting from it. Like I hate these kind of players. Like just so annoying. Like anyway, I just get annoyed with this. This high scoring game between 2 playoff teams, and none of the fantasy there's no options. The guys that we would rely on for fantasy, none of them really went off. Ladd McConkey was fine in PPR. If you do that, he was okay, but not phenomenal. So kind of a weird game in that regard. Bo Nix has kind of come down to earth a little bit. He makes some really bad throws, and he wasn't doing that a couple weeks ago. So I wonder if defenses have figured him out a little bit. Maybe they've now that there's enough film, defenses can kind of game plan for him a little better. Because he's made a lot of dumb passes over the last couple weeks here. So they've continued to win some games, but I think if you're a Broncos fan, you got to be a little bit nervous there as they go into the playoffs. From fantasy perspective, I think there's really not much to say there. DFS, I still think consistently Cortland Sutton is underpriced in DFS. He's typically most of the last few weeks, I think he's going to outproduce what you have to pay to have him on a lineup. And so I would just, people, if you play DFS, he is someone that I would be, he's not a must start, he's not so phenomenal that you have to get him in, but I think in more cases than not, he is the kind of guy that is worthy of consideration.
Yeah, he is 6,300, I think. Yeah, 6,300 on the Saturday slate. So we have 3 games on Saturday. The second divorce package this week. So, no, so yeah, I like him. It's a great matchup against Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Just a terrible defense. So I think I will be playing him. I haven't made any lineups yet. I was actually working on my DraftKings analysis for the site during the games. I didn't finish it. I'm like halfway through. So. Although I think the Thursday night analysis is already up, so this will be up by Thursday morning. I'm just kind of like behind here on like because this weird schedule. It's just like really pissed me off. Mike's saying so. Follow from last night. Ravens won. Bills have to play hard on and win Sunday to secure the second seed and then rest their starters in Week 18. So I don't know if I agree with that. Like, yeah, I mean, you are correct. Like, yeah, if they win, they get the second seed. They can rest the starters. They don't have to play in Week 18, which is nice. But they have the safety net that, like, if they lose this game, they can still win in Week 18 and get the second seed. So I don't think they necessarily have to play hard because they could just beat the Patriots in Week 18 and get the number 2 seed. And then it just goes back to what Josh Allen said. To quote, Evan brought it up last night, where like Josh Allen just basically admitted that the Bills do the bare minimum to win in some games, and so they're playing the Jets. Like I like how do they go out and play hard against a team they already beat, a team that has only 4 wins? I just don't see them bringing maximum effort. Like I could be wrong, but I think this is just a different circumstance than like the Packers, where like yeah, the Packers can move up to the 5 seed, but they're underdogs against a team they hate, and they want revenge. So I just think the Packers are more likely to play harder than the Bills. Is just what I'm saying. So I don't know if you have an opinion on this, but this is a debate we had last night.
Yeah, I this is where you and I might part ways a bit. I think the guesstimation of who's going to play hard and who's not feels like a futile effort to me because
Oh
I feel
yeah.
like I feel like most of the time we're wrong on this.
Oh yeah. Look. I just sorry to interrupt. I think you're absolutely right. I think it's the hardest thing to reject is player motivation. So
Yeah.
you're right. Yeah.
Okay. So I thought you were going to disagree with that.
No.
Yeah. So it's like I'm like we do know for sure that there are moments where some teams are more motivated than others. Like we know for sure that there are moments where we've heard players say those things like I mean literally this week I listening to a local sports talk station and they're ex players are like yeah there are moments where like you get up for games more than others and there's sometimes you just kind of mail it in because you're just exhausted or there's so many these are human beings. I mean forget these are human, they're not robots. Like these are human beings with emotions and family situations and all sorts of things. But we only know those things after the fact. Look retroactively look back and go, oh, that team mailed it in. And you can see that on the field often. But like trying to guesstimate ahead of time feels like, yeah, I don't know. It's probably maybe there are some Bills that really do want to go out and play hard this week because they do want to take a week off next week. I would imagine there's probably some guys in the locker room that feel that. And then there are probably other guys that feel what you just said, like, yeah, we'll get it next week. If we get it this week, great. If we don't, we get it the next week. I bet both of those things exist. And there's probably a third category of guys that are like, if we get the second seed or the third seed, we don't care. Like
Yeah.
I bet there's some guys in that category too.
That's
So I would imagine that it's hard to guesstimate that. So I wouldn't be playing my fantasy or DFS or betting, if you're a gambler, I wouldn't be betting games or props, things of that nature solely on player motivation. That feels like a potential Pandora's box there.
Yeah, 100%. But at the same time, you also have to consider it if you're looking at a big favorite, you have to wonder, okay, is there a chance this team takes the game off? Case in point, I mean, you said it, like you see it all the time, but like week 1, Bengals play the Patriots. What were they, like 9-point favorites? They lost outright, and we saw it like in their effort, like they just didn't show up, and so because they had the Chiefs next week. And they were big favorites against a team that was projected to finish last in the division. And the Patriots were the laughingstock of the NFL in the preseason. I don't know if you remember that one game where they had like 10 offensive line penalties in the first half alone against Washington. Like everyone was laughing at them, and the Bengals had to be watching that, be like, we can just show up and beat this team easily.
Right.
So they just didn't have effort. But at the same time, like there could have been a possibility where the Bengals did show up. But so that's just like something that you have to consider. And if you think that there's at least a chance a team's not going to bring it, then you just don't bet them, especially as big favorites. So, but on the other hand, like you can sometimes find that the better team has motivation. I thought today was a great instance of that, where the Chiefs, they were the better team, they were favored, and they had motivation because with a win they were able to lock up the number one seed. And you see it all the time where teams or players like they know they can achieve something great, like winning the division or locking up the number one seed. And if they do that, they always talk about it after the game. They're like, "Yeah, we won the division. Like that was step one." And they're like, "Or we got the number one seed. That was step two." Like they sometimes say that. And so these favorite teams will sometimes have the motivational edge. Ravens as well, I thought, because it was a showcase game, like on Christmas. Like even the announcers were like, "The whole world's watching," you know. So like that's like the better team was like, "Yeah, let's show how the world how great we are." And so. Sometimes these better teams do have a motivational edge. So it's just something that you have to factor in. It's a small piece of the pie, but it is something that you have to consider, like for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Anyway, so we can skip these two games because we talked about both of these teams. So we can just go to the Sunday slate. We had Bengals 24, Browns 6. This is I feel like this is plagiarism on Cleveland's part, where the Giants were like, "Yeah, we're going to bench Daniel Jones for Tommy DeVito," and like the players are all upset, and then they cut Daniel Jones, and they've lost ever since. They haven't won a game since. Now the Browns are like, "Wait a second, this is a good idea. Let's bench Jameis Winston for Dorian Thompson-Robinson," and hey, it worked out. They scored 6 points, and they were never in a position to win. The only good thing you could say about this game is that Jerome Ford broke for a 66-yard run in the first quarter, so he got up to 92 yards on only 11 carries. So if you started Ford, it worked out for you. Njoku as well, PPR, he did well. Otherwise, no one stood out for the Browns. Poor Jerry Jeudy. You know, he was looking good, and then they're like, "Screw you, Jerry Jeudy. We're going to put in Dorian Thompson-Robinson, so you can't do anything anymore." So this Browns team is just dead. I wouldn't really play anyone from them. You know, if you have Njoku as a tight end, whatever, it's fine. But like otherwise, I just wouldn't play anyone here. And then the Bengals, Joe Burrow continues to look great. Although he made one really bad play in this game. I don't know if you saw it. He was it was like first and goal. No, it was goal to go at the 1 yard line. I forget what down it was, but it was goal to go at the 1 yard line. He dropped back so far in the pocket. It was like 20 yards in the pocket, and then he got strip sacked and he like lost the ball. I was like, what? I was like, what the hell, Joe? Like, what are you doing? He took it's like the Browns took over at the 21 yard line. It's like, okay, even if you stall down there, okay, Cleveland has the ball at the one. Like he like basically gave them a touchback. It was so absurd. But no, Chase Brown did well. Not great. He didn't score a touchdown, but still, he looked good. Jamar Chase and T Higgins both scored, and so did Andre Yuskevich, got in the end zone as well. So what do you think about this game?
I was watching a chunk of this game because I have both Chase Brown and the Bengals defense on your recommendation. And so last week in my fantasy in the fantasy semifinals in our league to move on. This Cleveland offense is terrible right now. It's hard to have any value. And it did, if from a season long perspective, if you got Burrow, you got Jamar Chase, great. Man, what the Bengals have done this year is criminal. Wasting one of the greatest QB wide receiver duo, tandem seasons we've ever seen from any quarterback receiver combination. I mean, this really what Burrow and Chase have done this year is on par with some of the greats. Really, like the Steve Young, Jerry Rice era, the Steve Young T.O. year, the Peyton Manning, Marvin Harrison. I mean, like this is on that sort of level in terms of greatness. But they've got nothing to show for it because they have so many other problems, both on both sides of the ball and special teams. So yeah, it's really, really just tragic to think that we're probably never going to see. Like, this is it. This is Burrow's best. And the Super Bowl year was an aberration. And if you're a Bengals fan, I'm sorry. If you're a Browns fan, at least maybe they'll have a chance at a high pick to get a quarterback at some point in the next couple of years here. If you're the Bengals, you're going to be good enough to miss out on top picks, right?
Yeah. The Bengals, they might not have Higgins going forward. His contract's up, so they're going to have to re-sign him. And as we know, the Bengals are very stingy with their money, so I don't know if they're going to shell this out. And yeah, you're absolutely right. That was an aberration because they had Burrow on their rookie contract, so they were able to afford all these
Defensive
talented
players.
defenders. Exactly. And so like ever since they paid Burrow, they lost Jesse Bates, they lost Chidobe Awuzie, they lost DJ Reader, they lost like all these guys who helped them get to the Super Bowl. Like that defense was legit, and if they paired with Joe Burrow, if they had any semblance of an offensive line, they would have won the Super Bowl that year. And in fact, maybe they would have won the next year when they lost to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship. So, but like this team is just now declining, and for them to get back, like they have to nail all the draft picks. Because they're not going to spend money in free agency. Like, yeah, they might sign one guy or something, but like they're not gonna go all out to do it. So they have to luck out in the draft, and that's the only way that they're ever going to get back, which is a shame, as you said. Burrow's best years are just going to be wasted in Cincinnati.
But I think like with Burrow and Chase, they're going to be good enough to put together teams that like are good enough to not be the worst team in the league. So they're not going to get. So they're not likely going to get, top 5 pick, top 3 pick. So like, you can still get good talent obviously later in the first round, but they're going to be missing. Where the Browns are going to be, laughing stock maybe for a little while, and maybe they'll get multiple cracks on the number 1 overall pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is not the best quarterback draft though for the Browns. So even though they did realize that this is the best way to tank is just to put in your worst quarterback, it may not work out for them, unfortunately. 2026 might be a different story with Arch Manning, but this draft class doesn't look great. Ertz or Okonkwo PPR. A lot of people considering Okonkwo here. I guess because I guess it makes sense because like I'm sure Jacob had Ertz here on his team, and then he just picked up Okonkwo because he's been doing better. In this instance, I'll go with Okonkwo because I'm not convinced Ertz is healthy. That's
the caveat.
Yeah, Okonkwo's been really hot lately, and he's playing Jacksonville, which is a very easy matchup. So, yeah, Okonkwo for me. I assume you agree?
It's close. The Cowboys the Redskins play the Giants this week, correct?
The Redskins play the Falcons this week.
Oh, I thought they played the Giants this week. Why was I missing? Okay. Man, yeah, it's close in PPR. Probably on Okonkwo. Chiggy, bang, bang. I would roll with it. In DFS, he's my favorite player, by the way. He's 3,600 at the tight end spot. He's probably my favorite tight end play this week. In DraftKings, PPR.
I'm so behind with the stupid Wednesday games. I haven't gotten to the main slate yet. I've been like working progressively toward it. Like I'm up to the Saturday slate, so I will get it to tonight. So I imagine we will agree on that. I think Okonkwo is the best play. He's gonna be super highly owned though. That's the only.
Oh yeah, that's true, and I'm okay with that. It's gonna be chalky. I mean, Bowers is 6,700. John Smith is over 5. He's almost 6,000. And Njoku's almost 5,000. Like, don't spend money on those guys. If you are a DFS player, which I am not, but if you were, I would don't spend money on that. Don't waste your time.
Doing a lot of research for not being a defense player here.
I'm a man of the people. I do it for the people. I serve my friends like Jacob.
That's true. All right. The KC win screws the Bengals a bit because Cincinnati needs Denver to lose to Kansas City in Week 18. Yeah, until you remember that Carson Wentz is the backup for the Chiefs. So also the Bengals or the Chiefs notoriously play their starters when they don't need to. Like Mahomes is insistent that like he needs to play every game, even the preseason. So if I remember correctly, I think the Chiefs played their starters for like a quarter of the game last year when it didn't matter. I could be wrong about that, but I think it was like a quarter and a half. And I remember like what are you guys doing? Because it's just playing with fire. But I think they will do it. And then yeah, Carson Wentz. We both believe in Carson Wentz. And remember last year, Week 18, I played Carson Wentz in my DFS lineup in the single entry. And I would have won if I didn't swap out James Conner for Zamir White. So maybe I'll try to rekindle that magic and go with Carson Wentz once again. So we'll see. Although it's kind of tough though because if he doesn't play the full game, then he's not going to get there, unfortunately.
By the way, Andy Reid's philosophy earlier in his career, both in Philadelphia for his entire tenure in Philadelphia and in his early years in Kansas City. He was the sit your players kind of guy. I remember in 2004, the Eagles wrapped up the number 1 seed. They had 2 full games left to play. And And so, 2 full games. They in 14 games they wrapped it up. They were 13-1. So they sat all the starters for 2 full games, and then they had a bye week.
Yep.
So remember Brian Westbrook, he didn't play meaningful football for almost a month. And like that team needed it. They were banged up. T.O. was hurt, and so that was like Andy Reid's philosophy. I remember in 2006. They were playing a late game. They ended up wrapping up a division. They were locked into a seed. And literally, like, they found out because they were playing a 4:00 game and the 1:00 games already happened. So it was like, basically, like, as they're walking on the field, Andy Reid went to a bunch of players and was like, hey, you're not playing. You're not playing. Like literally, like, 4 minutes before kickoff. Like, a bunch of guys were in uniform and they just, like, sat the whole game because he's like, we're locked in. I think they were locked into the 4 seed or something like that. But they didn't know they were going to be locked into the 4 seed until the early games happened. And so he basically told the press after, he's like, the plan was if we had nothing to play, then, if he had nothing to play, then, we had nothing to play for, we were going to sit those guys. And it feels like that was Andy Reid's philosophy for a long time until Mahomes came along. So I wonder how much like Mahomes just like lobbying to play has like maybe shifted Andy Reid in that direction, because he did that with Alex Smith, earlier in his career. He did that with Jamal Charles. He would sit him. So he would sit players if they had little to play for.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's what he used to do all the time. I remember that 2-game stretch where he sat both games. I remember being like pretty worried about that because I think that had been on the Eagles to win the Super Bowl. I can't remember like why I was worried about it, but I was. No, he has changed his philosophy. I think he just trusts Mahomes to make the right decision. I mean, like if you have the best quarterback in the NFL and he wants to play, like why would you go against that? Like, I think you need to listen to him and just and trust. I mean, he's already won 3 Super Bowls for you, So yeah, I'm not like look, they know what they're doing. Like, and if it backfires, it backfires. But they've already won thrice, so it's hard to criticize. Should I start T Spears? It depends who else you have. I'm not high on Spears because there's still Pollard there. Now Pollard's out, then over many options, yes. But with Pollard there, it's hard to justify Spears, even though he's done well the past 2 weeks. I don't know if I trust that to continue.
Yeah, if Pollard is playing, no. I wouldn't trust. There's not enough. There's not enough fire. There's not enough scoring potential in that offense. If Pollard is in, I actually like Pollard against Jaguars.
Yeah.
I think the matchup is great. In DFS, Pollard 6,400. I think it's decent value. Spears is 5,400 in DFS. Isn't it weird though? I feel if Pollard is out, Spears at 5,400 will seem like a great value, but I think it will be so chalky. I think so many people would jump on that I would want to steer away from it. I wouldn't want to get into that. Where Pollard at 6,400, I don't think will be highly owned, and so I'd be more likely to play Pollard at 6,400 than Spears at 5,400 with Pollard out of the game.
So generally, and this may not hold up, but generally this year, the chalk running backs have mostly hit, whereas like the chalk quarterbacks and the chalk receivers and chalk tight ends have not. And it kind of makes sense because the running backs are always going to get the ball unless it's like there's a weird deficit or something. Right. But like they're like you can at least like hey, we're going to hand the ball off to this running back. Like you can make that happen. Whereas like receiver, the opposing team could just shut them down with bracket coverage or something. It's just a lot tougher. So like Spears at 5,400, I have no issues playing him. But yeah, like I would try to avoid the chalk quarterback and chalk receiver. I just like it. Like some of the main DFS winners are like notorious for playing like very very low owned quarterbacks. Just because right. if you get the stack right, like you're like in a small percentage of people who can win it, and it just like lowers the odds that you need to get everything else right. So that's the strategy behind that. But should I start Alec Ingold? well, if Mike McDaniel's listening, he's like, yeah, of course you should. Uh,
No, don't do that.
no, don't. Yeah, I agree. All right. Panthers 36, Cardinals 30. The Panthers, they were kind of left for dead after last week's performance against the Cowboys. They called back and were very impressive. Juba Hubbard ran all over the Cardinals. And very, very sad for James Conner owners. I've been talking up James Conner so much because of his easy playoff schedule. He had the Patriots last week, he had the Panthers this week, or this past week, I should say. And he was on his way to a great game. He had 15 carries for 117 yards and a touchdown, and 4 catches, 49 receiving yards. This is in 2.5 quarters. Like, he was on pace to have this monster game, and then he hurt his knee and he left. And on top of that, the Cardinals lost Jonah Williams, one of their tackles, which was very painful for them because they also had Paris Johnson, their other tackle, who was out. So in the second half, their offense really slowed down. Kyler Murray took a huge sack in overtime because he didn't have his tackles, and so the Panthers won on a short field. So this is a nice win for the Panthers, I guess. Like, I mean, they are ruining the draft position, but I feel like they're like the one bad team where you can kind of say that, like, it doesn't matter as much because, well, first of all, they're not going to draft a quarterback with
Right.
Bryce developing. And second, I think they just need confidence. Like, they need to know how to win. And I think, like, getting these wins late in the year is I think is important for them to kind of build momentum into next year. So I do like this win for them. I think they need to keep trying to win. So yeah, nice game here for the Panthers. So what do you think about this game?
Oh yeah, I totally agree with everything said. Although the Cardinals, man, like, by the way, I have Trey Benson on the bench, so maybe he's a guy I could have considered over Joe Mixon. I mean, not likely, but yeah, I don't trust anyone on this Cardinals team right now going into next week. So if you own any of these players, you're relying on them. I don't like any of them, and I think and I don't think there's any value in DFS. So I'm not looking at any of those guys. Maybe Trey Benson you could talk about. Maybe on the Carolina side, there's actually two values I see. I by the way, I also agree with you. What you said about them winning, like these players don't care about tanking or not tanking. Like, these are young players, just like they just want to go out and play football and try. Like, so I think that's, yeah. Like, unless you're really trying to go after a top quarterback. Other than that, trying to jockey for the position. I mean, the probability of hitting on a talent at the 8 spot is no different than the 5 spot, probability speaking. So just have good scouts and draft well. Maybe not. Maybe if they did that, maybe they wouldn't have drafted Bryce Young. That's a different conversation.
Well, so, to be fair, the owner was the one who forced that draft.
There are 2 DFS values. Again, I'm not a DFS player, but I got 2 values for you. I really like I think Adam Thielen at 5,700 in DraftKings and the tight end Tremble at 3,200. I think are both potential values. We talked about Chiggy. He's my favorite tight end this week. But if you're too concerned about chalkiness or ownership being too high on that one, I think Trumbull at 3,200, he's getting quite a few targets at 3,200. If he gets you nothing, gets you a goose egg, it's not a huge deal. You can still be competitive. But if he's getting the same targets he's been getting, I think he's going to overperform 3,200. And then Adam Thielen is just old reliable. And I think because he had a slightly down week from a down week from the previous weeks, I think people will be off of him. So 5,700, I think is good value and probably not a lot of ownership there.
Yeah, I like both plays. Tampa's defense is really bad against the pass. I would not play Hubbard again in DFS.
Too expensive.
He's expensive and it's a tough matchup. Now in like standard, like regular fantasy, like you may not have a choice,
right,
just based on who your other running backs are. But in DFS, I would just try to avoid him. Kim McEagle asking, can Miami win in Cleveland? Only going to be rainy at 56. Miami's used to the rain. 56 is, it's cold for Miami, but it's fine. Like, I think they could certainly win. The question is, will they be motivated? And here is like, I feel like this is like a case where you have to look at motivation primarily, because if the Broncos and Chargers both win on Saturday, then Miami will be eliminated from the playoffs. So they will have nothing to play for. Now, they're going to play their starting quarterback, unlike Cleveland. But still, like, will they cover the 6.5? Maybe, but I don't know. It's not something I want to bet on. But if they need a win, then I do love Miami this week. Should I start Tua or Rodgers? I think Tua, because it seems like the Browns are giving up. So I would start Tua. What do you think?
Oh man, not that long ago we saw the Bills give up 44 points, 496 yards and 5 touchdowns to Jared Goff. And Rodgers looks a little motivated the last few weeks. So I don't know. The thing with Tua, we've seen teams get eliminated from playoffs and still come out and play on fire. So yeah, I don't know. Cause the Dolphins could come out and be super motivated to want to just pound. They're pissed. They want to pound someone in the ground and just want to take it out on a poor third string quarterback. I think it's possible. I don't know. I lean Rodgers, but in our league for the championship, I'm wrestling between Rodgers and Purdy. But I think I would lean Rodgers on this, but it'd be really close.
You know what? I think because the Bills have some injuries in their secondary, I actually think I would go Rodgers after thinking about it, because they have cluster injuries at safety. Both their safeties are out. They're missing one of their corners last week. They're missing Matt Milano as well. Now, if all of them come back this week, I might change my mind. But I think that has something to do with all the points they've given up recently is the injuries in the secondary. So, if they're not healthy, I think Rodgers is the way to go. But yeah, check the injury report for sure. All right, let's get to the next game. Redskins 36, Eagles 33. This is a heartbreaker because I had a bet on the Eagles, and then Jalen Hurts throws 4 passes, and then he gets knocked out with a concussion. I said this yesterday, but I thought that a clear sign that he was concussed was that he gave a thumbs up to the ref. And my dad always points out that my dad hates Jalen Hurts so much, and I was like, why? And he's like, he's never happy, he's never smiling, he's always seems upset. And so the fact that he was positive, it was like, okay, this guy's concussed. So it's unfortunate, especially you had him in fantasy. Can you imagine having a great year in fantasy? You get the bye, and then I'm starting Jalen Hurts against the Redskins, and then 4 passes and he's out. That's such a bummer. He even had 3 carries for 41 yards. It seemed like he was gonna have a great day on the ground at least. Saquon Barkley 115, 2 touchdowns. He's still alive for the single game record. Single season record. It's 2105 by Dickerson. So he could get there. It'll be interesting to see how they handle that if he has a great game. I assume he's going to play in Week 18 until he gets the record, and then they'll send him. Kind of like Devontae Smith did that one year when he had the rookie record for the Eagles. But Jane Daniels was awesome in the fourth quarter. He converted 4th and long. He moved the chains a lot. Great comeback. But if Devontae Smith doesn't drop that ball, he's never in position to do that. So it's second time this year an Eagle star player on offense drops a pass on 3rd down late in the game to allow the opposing quarterback to come back. Happened week 2 against Atlanta. Happened here. So the Eagles could really have just one loss right now if those things didn't happen. So what are your thoughts on this game?
Eagles fan here. Everyone knows that, but if you don't, heartbreaking loss. How many times can you say, that that the opposing team, you force, your defense forces 5 turnovers and you still lose the game. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. I think I had the stat here. It's if teams that get 5 turnovers or more in NFL history have won the game 89% of the time. And my immediate thought was, that low?
I know.
If you have 5 turnovers, I mean, I would have guessed it's a 98%, not 89%. So 89% of the time, if a team gets 5 turnovers or more, they win. The Eagles were now, in this case, in the 11%, where it was remarkable, but there were so many times where they just couldn't move the ball. The Redskins had great run blitzes, zone running defense. They were able to look at the zone runs and bottle them up, and they really were forcing the Eagles to pass. But the weird thing was it wasn't like that. Kenny Pickett was like not. Kenny Pickett actually made some really good throws in this game. They just like totally abandoned the pass game. It was like the Eagles, and so if that just makes me nervous. Like they seemingly did not want Pickett throwing the ball at all. Maybe they just know that maybe they see him in practice and they go, listen, this guy sucks, so we don't trust him. And so we don't want to – maybe that's what they saw. I don't know. But when he had to throw the ball, he was effective. He wasn't phenomenal. He wasn't great. He's not a starting quarterback in the NFL. But he was fine for a backup. He was fine. And they made no attempt to push the ball down the field, and they only threw when they absolutely had to. That is not good. If Jalen Hurts misses this next game, I think this puts a huge damper on all of the weapons for the Eagles, all of them. You've got I've got AJ Brown in our championship league. I got to start him. I don't have any other options that are going to be great. But this is a moment where I got to go, man. If you've got Devontae Smith in a fantasy championship game, or even Saquon Barkley and Pickett's going to be the quarterback, if you got other options, you probably don't. But if you do, maybe you consider one of those other options, because their offense looked absolutely terrible once they couldn't move the ball. And so I don't know what to do with the situation. The Eagles offense, they scored 21 points and 200 some yards of offense in the first quarter, and then the rest of the way 4 field goals and 100 yards of offense through second, third, fourth quarter. By the way, I remember this summer we had an argument about Kenny Pickett, and I was saying Kenny Pickett was a decent quarterback. I might have been wrong on that one. He had some moments in this game where I get why he was a first round pick. Like he seems to read the defense well. He seems to make good decisions. He just doesn't have the arm. Like he just can't make the throws. And so he seems like the kind of guy that could be a really good coach one day. I could see you being a really good quarterback coach. He seems a really smart guy, but he just doesn't have the arm talent. And I think that's obvious. I think it's pretty obvious pretty quick. And so if he's the quarterback this week, oh man, I'd be nervous to play my Eagles. Obviously, if you're in a situation you may not have any other options, but man, I certainly would not be playing them in DFS.
Yeah, and if it's Hurst, then yeah, you're feeling good about it. But it could be Tanner McKee too, because Pickett suffered an injury in this game, so we don't know yet who it's going to be. And as a reminder, the only reason why Kenny Pickett went in the first round is because he went to Pitt. That's the only reason. The Steelers owners came out and said that if they had a first round caliber quarterback who went to Pitt, they weren't going to pass on one, because they passed on Dan Marino, in the early 80s. So because of that mistake they made 40 years ago, they decided to draft Kenny Pickett when no one else had a first round gain on him. So that was it's pretty brutal.
I will say this. Oh, sorry. Good.
I was gonna say that draft was funny because there were 2 quarterbacks people had in the first round of their mock drafts. It's Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis. And Willis fell to round 3, and I feel like Pickett would have gone to round 2 if it wasn't for the Steelers. But it's funny that right now, if you had to choose between the two, you would definitely take Willis, right? Especially after what he did with the Packers early this season. He was really impressive.
Yeah, I wouldn't want either.
Right, if you had to, someone had a gun to your head and said, for $1, you have to pick one.
Yeah. So someone would have gone ahead and said you have to bet $1 on who's going to have a better career.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say Willis. You're right. Yeah. I will say, in this scenario though, in DFS, I would say if Jalen Hurts is playing in this game, well, then I think Devontae Smith at 5,800 in DraftKings is actually undervalued. Mm-hmm. I think, when I look at the Cowboys defense, I think Devontae Smith could do some damage. It is obvious defenses are double teaming and bracketing and rolling coverage toward AJ Brown regularly. And so in this particular game with the Redskins, they had Marshawn Lattimore lined up. Most teams don't do man-to-man anymore as much. This man-to-man coverage is just a thing of the past. It's so rare. But in this game, the Redskins played nonstop man-to-man, and they had Lattimore shadow AJ Brown the whole time. And on almost every play there was a safety or a slot corner rolling that direction. And so AJ Brown's not open. Every time AJ Brown had one man-to-man coverage, he got the ball his way and he made a catch or got a DPI. He had 3 different pass interferences called against the defenders covering AJ Brown in this game for, I think, a grand total of like 88 yards. So, by the way, like as a fantasy owner of AJ Brown, I feel like I should get those points. Like, 88 yards, man. Like that should go to my I don't know. A receiver has a pass interference called. I feel like he should get those points. That's a different conversation for a different day. But anyway, I just think it's obvious that Devontae Smith is the guy that's like teams are basically saying like we're going to let that guy beat us if he and at 5,800, I think Devontae Smith if Hurts is playing in this game, I think is a great value. He would be in most of my lineups if I were a DFS player.
I like it. Do you remember the first guy to drop a pass? Back in Atlanta.
It was Saquon.
Saquon. You remember what Saquon did the following week?
What was the game the next week?
The Saints game.
Oh yeah, I mean he had an all world game.
Yeah, he had 147 and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Do you remember the guy for the Colts who dropped the ball at the goal line or right before the goal line? John Taylor. What did he do next week?
He had a pretty good week.
3 touchdowns. So Devontae Smith screws up. What's he going to do this week? I like it. I think I like that narrative. Now you have to have Jalen Hurts there. I'm not playing Devontae Smith with Pickett or McKee. I actually like McKee better. But no, I'm not playing those guys. But like I said, Hurts definitely play Devontae Smith for sure. So we had some questions as we were talking about this game. Would Miami in a teaser money line work if the game means nothing? Yeah, I would not take them in anything if the game means nothing. They can still cover. I wouldn't take Cleveland. I just wouldn't take Miami. So Kelsey, dude, has been disappointing, but did not let me down in shit week. This is rough for Kenny. So I'm glad for you. I'm upset for Kenny because I'm rooting for Kenny in the championship. No offense, Manu, if you're watching, but Kenny and I have been friends for a very long time, 25 years now. It's kind of
most of my life, all the days of my life.
It's more than half our lives. We've been friends. So PPR, Spears, Pollard, or Ford, RB2. And then my 2 receiver and 2 flex right now are Kupp, Higgins, Shakir, Keenan Allen, got Metcalf, and McMillan on the bench. Would you guys make any changes? So to answer the first question, look at Pollard's injury status throughout the week. If he's not missing practice, then definitely Pollard. If he is, then I guess Spears. I don't know if I play Ford. He just had a good game, but if you take away that 66-yard run, he just hasn't done anything. So I would go Pollard and Spears then Ford. As far as the other question, Metcalf is getting healthier, so you have to consider that. And then McMillan has been pretty good. I don't know if I'd like. It feels like Kupp has a decent matchup. Higgins does as well. You're not gonna bench Higgins. Shakir against a Jets defense is pretty good. It's pretty close. I think I would go. I think I'll try to get Metcalf in there. As bad as he's been, like it seems like he's healthier now, and I think he could break out, especially given that the Bears are better against slot receivers than outside receivers. So I think Metcalf could do well, and I try to get McMillan in there too. So I don't know. I think I'd probably bench Shakir for either Metcalf or McMillan. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I'm just kind of looking. I think I would go. I think Higgins is the only one I think is a definite. I would say Keenan Allen next. So I would definitely say those 2 guys.
Yeah.
I do think my next 2 guys up would be 2 of 3 would be Metcalf, McMillan, or Kupp. So I think I would be sitting Shakir in this situation, actually.
Yeah.
So I think, I think Kupp, Higgins, Allen, and probably Metcalf with McMillan on the bench. It pains me to sit McMillan because I like him.
Yeah.
But I think the other guys have better matchups or just better overall upside. I think McMillan's upside is not phenomenal. The running back position there, I don't. Jerome Ford has not looked good. He's had a couple moments that on the stat sheet make it look better than what you see on the field, and so a sloppy, wet game against the Dolphins defense with a team that can't move the ball because the quarterback's terrible. I would not want Jerome Ford I wouldn't want any part of that. So, if Pollard's healthy, I'm going Pollard. If Pollard's out, I'm going Spears. If Pollard's in, you don't want Spears. We talked about that already. But if Spears is by himself, I think that could be a good game in PPR, particularly.
Yeah. How far do you think McCaffrey will drop in next year's fantasy football drafts? Well, he's not going to be the normal guy. We know that.
Yeah.
It really depends on the news in the offseason. Like if he's looking great in practice and there's no concerns, then I still think he could be a first round pick. He'd probably be like mid first. But if there's like, missing practice and stuff like that, and suddenly I think he falls around 2. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a good question. I was looking at some of the stats right now. I have a feeling I think there's gonna be a lot of people frustrated and afraid of him. And so I think it's unlikely in any format he's a first round pick next year. Even if the offseason goes right, I think there's gonna be too many people scared off by him. Because what we've seen the last couple of years is just receivers just dominating, and maybe that will come back a little bit based on the events of this year. You've had some running backs that just kill it. I think you're going to have a backlash. I'd be very surprised if he's a first round pick next year. My guesstimate is that if all of the offseason reports are positive, he's a high second round pick. If there's some question marks, then he's maybe as low as third round pick is my guess. Okay. High third round, top 20, top 30 pick, top 28 pick.
Yeah, and Saquon's the number 1 pick, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, maybe Bijan. Maybe there's a case for Bijan, but I think Saquon's the number 1 guy next year.
Yeah, for sure. Connor or London, factoring injuries. Well, you have to make sure Connor. Look, if Connor is going to play, and you'll know that before London because the Cardinals play Saturday night. Like if he's active, I will play Connor. But if he's questionable heading to the game, and like you see some bad stuff in the pregame report or something, then I go London. But again, you're gonna know this, so I don't understand like why the Cardinals would rush him back. He hurt his knee. He's limited so far in 2 of the 3 practices that they've had. And this game means nothing because they got eliminated. So like why would they rush him back? And even if they play him, it's just like, are they going to give him a full workload? I don't trust it. So, the more I think about it, I think London makes more sense. What do you think?
Yeah, I was trying to look. I was just trying to pull up. I was pulling up the stats right now. It was taking me a second to get it here. I feel like I would be really, really hesitant to play Connor for all the reasons you just said. But also, like, okay, I got him here. Also, just like this offense has not been good for like long stretches of the last few weeks, and so like in the last 3 weeks, he's been awesome numerically. Like his stats have been awesome, right? 22, 26, 18 points each of the last 3 weeks in standard leagues, and that's been great. But like they've also had like inconsistent moments. So like before that, like we see him scoring like 7 points, 4 points, 7 points, like then like 17, 16, 12, and then like 2 points. So like when this offense has not been good through parts of the year, like Connor's numbers have been low. And so, I think, I don't know, the Rams are not a terrible team. And so obviously it's a favorable matchup, but not an amazing matchup in my opinion. And I don't know, I'd be nervous to play Connor. With this way the offense is, and I think Kyler Murray. I've never bagged on Kyler Murray much, have I? I should bag on him more often. I think he's kind of a loser. Like he's got like a loser mentality.
Yeah,
he just like strikes me as a loser. Like this guy, like this team has had enough talent where they should do more with what they've got. And I just think it's because he's just like I think he's I don't know. I think he's okay. I think he's so. I think he's kind of a loser. He's the kind of guy that like they're eliminated and could just mail it in. Like he just got loser all over it. I just wouldn't want to trust this team right now. I wouldn't want no part of this offense, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Do you think he's preparing for this game or playing video games right now?
Yeah, he's playing Grand Theft Auto, whatever the kids are playing.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like he's got good talent. He's not great, but he's good. But I do think that like, and he's been accused of just like not trying hard in the past. So I like. The lack of effort I think can be there sometimes. You see it for stretches. It looks like Denver Cincinnati is going to be ugly weather. Fan standpoint, do you think Denver can clinch the playoffs? Fantasy standpoint, Burrow and Higgins possible to struggle. Now, if there's like a torrential downpour, then yes. But I like if it's just rain, like rain by itself is not bad. Now, like depending on how hard the rain is, yes. The wind is the biggest factor. If it's like super windy, then that's when you want to avoid it. But like just looking at the weather, it says that it's going to be. It says likely rain, only 8 mile an hour winds. So I don't know how strong the rain's going to be. It's so tough. Like I've said this so many times. Like people take it for granted. They look at the weather report when they're trying to like handicap like NFL, like whether it's for fantasy or picks, and they're like, oh, let me look at the weather. Okay, it's gonna be this. Like there are people who have like who make like it's their livelihood to predict the weather, and they get it wrong all the time. It's just so hard to just kind of determine what the weather is going to be, and so you just don't know. Like it's so hard to project what it's going to be. So I think you just play your guys. Now, like for me, I would say like just pay attention to like the pregame warmups. If the sideline reporter is standing there and like you can't even see him because it's raining so hard and like stuff's blowing in the background, it might be like, okay, let me avoid this. But otherwise, I think I would just I'd still play those guys.
Yeah, I'm less concerned about that. Wind is the only wind. Yeah, I guess you said torrential downpours. Yeah, I tend to be less concerned about those sort of things. I've just seen great players in lots of bad weather situations still perform well. If you've got better options, yeah, I guess it's you consider that, but it's not likely.
Yeah. And the other question, Denver can. I think the Bengals will win the game, but Denver can clinch next week against the Chiefs, who may sit their starters for a portion of the game. We talked about that a little bit earlier. All right, let's get to the next game here, which is Falcons 34, Giants 7. So Michael Penix made his first start in the NFL. He threw an interception. That was Kyle Pitts just juggling the ball and just like having it land into
terrible.
The arms. Yeah, I don't know.
Should have been a touchdown. Kyle Pitts touchdown.
I don't know what Kyle Pitts is doing on Sundays. He's not playing football. I don't know what
he's
doing.
He's sucking. He's doing what I said he would do in 2020.
He's awful. He just has not lived up to his expectations at all. And it's a shame because you sometimes see greatness from him. Like there have been a few games this year, like the second Tampa game, for example, where he's just been awesome. But you see games like this, 1 catch, 7 yards is ridiculous. Like, and I know the Giants play well against tight ends, but he was responsible for his rookie quarterback's first interception, which is you just can't do that. And conversely, Darnell Mooney and Drake London both caught 5 passes. Mooney looked like he had some good chemistry with him, even though I think it was Mooney who said it. He said he hadn't caught a pass from Penix in practice up until this past week. Which is kind of crazy if you think about it, because like he's the direct backup. Just goes to show that like the collective bargaining agreement they had back in 2010 just like made things so much worse for the development of these players. Just because like how do you develop these guys if they're not throwing passes to the starting receivers? It just seems ridiculous. But anyway, the only player for the Giants continues to be, well, I should say 2. Malik Neighbors and Tyrone Tracy. Tyrone Tracy caught a touchdown. Malik Neighbors, we had his over receiving yards, and he got there on the final drive, which is nice. But other than that, you had Drew Lock throwing 2 pick sixes. So that's the Giants' tanking plan goes. It's been fruitful so far. So it's all according to plan. So what do you think about this game?
But technical point, Walt, your volume's like dropped significantly a moment ago. I don't know.
Testing 1 2 3. Is that
there
work?
You are. You're back. You're back.
All right, I don't know what happened, but okay.
No, you went away again. I don't know what happened.
I'll try to talk closer. Does that work?
No, it's I don't know. It's kind of goofy. It's kind of inconsistent, like Kyle Pitts. I don't know. But
well, I mean, people in the chat can tell me if you hear me clearly. But I mean, go ahead, Kenny.
Okay. Watching the Giants lose is glorious. There are many things in life that are beautiful. The sunrise, the sunset, my wife, my beautiful baby children's, and the Giants getting smoked by a quarterback playing his first NFL game. I mean, this is glorious. This is beautiful. So, Merry Christmas to me. I think Yeah, the Giants. The only thing we need is though we need the Giants to win one more game. So I want the Eagles to to win this week, and then they're not gonna get the 1 seed. So just sit their starters in last week and lose to the Giants, so the Giants don't get the #1 pick, so they can't get a quarterback. That's my that's the that would be the time to lose the Giants. That would actually give life to my soul rather than suck it out. That would be amazing. But yeah, I think maybe Kenny has drones flying above. That's probably true. That's probably true. Uh, yeah, from a fantasy perspective, I'm looking at I mentioned some guys here. Let me make sure I didn't miss anyone. That's important. No, okay. Yeah, I think I like Penix. He looked mostly good. I was able to watch a chunk of this game, and I went back and watched the highlights. Man, he actually looked pretty decent to me. Okay, like maybe even if, the Falcons have an outside chance to make the playoffs, right? I think according to ESPN, they have like a 12% chance to make the playoffs now.
No, if they win out, they're in. They have the lead in the division now.
If they went out, but like the probability, I guess they went out is what.
No, it's not too bad. They played the Redskins this week, but then they play the Panthers next week, so they could do it. Or if Tampa loses one game, then they have a great chance. I think you may have been looking at I don't know if they're eligible for the wild card. I probably not. No, they're not because they play Washington. They won.
Yeah, no, they have to play they have to win the division.
Yeah, it's fun. It's funny how it works out because Tampa can still get the wild card from Washington, the 7th spot, but Atlanta can't, and it's because if Atlanta beats Washington, then Atlanta just moves into the 4th seed. So it's just funny how that works. Like Atlanta can't get the 7th seed because they would get the 4th seed. I thought that was interesting. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, from a fantasy perspective, if you got Bijan, you're playing him. If you're relying on Bijan, other than that, man, we talked about Drake London a little earlier, and it's like, okay, he's like, but he's been inconsistent. He's had injuries. Like, I don't know that I want to start anyone on this team other than Bijan unless I have to, and I certainly don't want to touch him in DFS. And on the Giants, I don't want anyone on that team either. Neighbors is the only one, but like the offense is not going to score enough points for him to have a lot of upside. So like I am if I can avoid any player on either of these two teams, with the exception of Bijan, in both season-long fantasy as well as DFS, I'm going to do it. I don't love Neighbors had 7 catches and 60 some yards, whatever it was. That's great. Good for you, Neighbors. That's good numbers in DFS, but not for what he cost. For what he's going to cost you in DFS, he's got to score a touchdown, or he's got to have a chance at 100 yards. Otherwise, it's not going to pay off. And so, yeah, if I'm the owner of any of these players on either one of these teams, I'm not interested, and with the exception of Bijan.
Speaking of DFS and Atlanta players, I don't know if you saw the winning Millie Maker lineup last week had Michael Penix as quarterback.
Nice.
Penix, who had 4 fantasy points, or I think 6. I think he had 6 fantasy points. That was the winning quarterback. Just goes to show how important it is to get a cheap option in your lineup, because I believe he was like 4,500 or something.
Yeah.
So that just allowed you to get to all the studs. Like last week, you needed 3 running backs. You needed Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, and I think either and Chuba Hubbard. I think you needed those 3 running backs. They all went off. And then like Keenan Allen and Chiggy Okonkwo. But like that's what got you there. Okonkwo was cheap too. But like the 3 running backs were very expensive, and you just needed to save the salary to get to them. So
yep.
that was the right build there.
Although Penix, the Penix stats don't look good, but I just with the naked eye, just go, this guy looked better than Kirk Cousins. And if the Falcons make the playoffs, I think they're better. I think they roll with Penix, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Cousins threw 1 touchdown and 9 interceptions in his final 5 games. Like he just looks injured. Like I don't think he's healthy. So I think there's a chance he recovers next year once he's healthier. But right now you can't go back to Cousins at all. He just looks like he looks more broken than CJ Stroud, which is saying a lot. Unless it's Chris Thompson, she might be using styrofoam and a ceiling fan to simulate weather. That's great. We make fun of Chris Thompson a lot. All right, let's get to the next game. So we had Colts 38, Titans 30. You might be like, oh wow, this is a close game. The Colts were up 38-7 in the middle of the third quarter, and they just kind of fell asleep at the wheel. The Titans had this great surge, and it made me happy. I said this yesterday, so if you guys are like, why are you saying this again? Sorry, I'm telling Kenny. I played Mason Rudolph as my quarterback in my main DraftKings lineup in the SPY, just because, again, like super cheap guy. And I thought he would be behind. He might throw to Calvin Ridley. Outstanding matchup for Ridley. He was cheap too, so it's like a cheap stack to get to these three running backs. So it's like that's what I wanted. Unfortunately, I didn't have Jonathan Taylor. I had Saquon, I had Connor, and I had who's my third? It wasn't Hubbard. There's another guy who went off. Anyway, so I had like 3-star running backs, so all did really well. I was like, man, how do I get to this without like having like horrible options? I was like, yeah, play Rudolph with Ridley, and like right away, Rudolph went to Ridley for a touchdown. I was at like 1:45 in the afternoon. I was in first place in the SPY. I was like, it says like currently winning $100,000. Like, this is awesome. And then it fell off when Rudolph wasn't doing anything, and I felt like such an idiot playing Rudolph. And then he stormed back and he got like good. He finished like 20 points or something. And so he got me like way over the cash line. I didn't win, but I got like 97th place or something. So I'll take it, in the SPY. So anyway, Rudolph is all garbage time here. 252, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He was horrible in the first half, but like in the second half when he was starting garbage time, he reminded me of Blake Bortles of circa 2015. So yeah, Conco would benefit from it. Ridley to an extent. Spears did. He caught some dump off passes. Nick Westbrook-Akine caught a touchdown, of course. And then you get to the Colts. We had Anthony Richardson's over rushing prop. He had a great fantasy day, not a real life day as passer. He only completed 7 passes, but as a rusher, he did well. Taylor went nuts. So keep that in mind. When a player embarrasses themselves, a good player, I should say like a good or great player embarrasses themselves, play them next week because we've seen it with Barkley. We've seen it with Taylor. We might see it with Devontae Smith. So what are your thoughts on this game?
And my thoughts on this game are that both of these quarterbacks don't belong in the NFL. How's that? Anthony Richardson, I'm trying to think, when was the last time we saw a guy who is legitimately useful for fantasy and yet is so bad in real life? Like, is Blake Bortles 2015, 2014? Is that like the last time we saw this?
Yeah, 2015 Blake Bortles, yeah.
Like the chasm between real life and fantasy is pretty substantial here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. There's got to be others, maybe, but we're like
Cordell Stewart back in the day. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like
I felt like he was at least like competitive NFL quarterback. Like this is Anthony Richardson is terrible. He like legitimately, objectively is terrible. Maybe he'll get better. He's got this rocket arm. He's got this unbelievable ability to make throws that very few guys in NFL history could make. The ball just jumps off his hands. I mean, it's remarkable. He's an unbelievable athlete, but man, wow. Yeah, I mean, this guy reads defenses so bad, it makes me wonder, can he read like Dr. Seuss? I mean, this guy can't read something. I mean, anyway, Jonathan Taylor's awesome. You're starting him. None of the receiving options on the Colts are worth starting in fantasy leagues or in DFS. I want no part of them. The Titans, you starting Rudolph in a DFS lineup is courageous or stupid, or I'm not sure, but I'm glad it paid off to some extent. Man, I would want no part of anyone on this team. I don't want any of the receivers. I don't want the quarterback. Chiggy and DFS or fantasy. I think I'm fine with Chiggy. And we talked about Pollard already. If Pollard is starting, I think it's actually decent value this coming week. And if Spears is starting, then I think he could be a decent option potentially, though. But I'm more excited about Pollard at 6,400 than I am Spears at 5,700 in DFS, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. Well, any team want Cousins next year, maybe you can get right by then. Yeah, I think there will be a market for him. Tennessee, we're just talking about Tennessee right now. They have no options because if they can't get a top 2 pick, and there are only 2 good quarterbacks in this class, it's Shador Sanders and Cam Ward. Beyond that, it's just like just scrubs. So and who knows? Maybe you can find a diamond in the rough. Like they should probably spend a second day pick on a quarterback. But yeah, if I'm the Titans, like you really have no alternative. So I think they'll probably go after either Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins because they can't go to the season again with Will Levis. Like that just they can't sell their fans on that. So unless they kind of make it clear that that they're going to tank for Arch Manning, which I don't know. I mean, Peyton Manning played at Tennessee, so there is a connection there at least.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about like the other teams that might be interested. Maybe the Seahawks want to move on from Kirk Cousins or move on from Geno Smith. They can get out of the contract this year minimally. Maybe they would be interested.
Cleveland,
I'm looking at other teams. The Rams. What's going to happen with Stafford? The Giants. Are they going to have a quarterback option? The Jets. What's going to happen with them? You mentioned Tennessee. The Raiders, what are they going to do at quarterback? The Saints, what are they going to do at quarterback? Are they going to stick with Carr? They can get out of that contract.
Mm-hmm.
I think about Cleveland, and they're going to draft a quarterback. Do they want a successor or a kind of a mentor guy, a stopgap? I mean the Vikings. Like, are they going to commit to Darnold long term? Do they bring back a Cousins? Probably not, right?
Well, they have McCarthy, so they're.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
Yeah. So like Darnold might be the top quarterback on the market, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. Like this time last year, you would have been committed if you had said that.
Yeah. The Steelers, they can get are they committed to Russell Wilson beyond this year? Probably not. He's not been good. Do they believe in Justin Fields at all? Probably not. Like, I don't know. I think there's at least one. It only takes one. And there will be at least one team that is willing to throw some money at Kirk Cousins. Once he's released and the Falcons take the $67 million dead cap hit.
It's crazy. It's crazy. They're just way too many teams that need quarterbacks. You just listed like a dozen of them. So there's just way too much interest. Is Tracy a better option than Spears? Yeah, for sure. The Colts are not good against the run. So I think Spears or Tracy could have a decent game. And Spears may not be the starter. Now, again, if Pollard's out, then I think I'd rather have Spears. But you just have to look at the injury report. So,
Tracy's also been dealing with an injury. I think he's less than 6,000 on DFS in the main slate. So, he could be a decent DFS option. In season long, it depends on your other options. Like, he's not a shoe in for me, but if you've been relying on him, it's likely that he's one of your better options.
Agreed. All right. Next game we have Rams 19, Jets 9. There was like better offense in this game than that score indicates because the Jets I think there were only like 7 possessions in this game. Like the Jets had these like a very long drives where they just had the ball forever, and 2 of those drives resulted in no points. It was like a turnover on downs. I think there was a fumble, if I remember correctly, or maybe it was a second turnover on downs. Like, I don't know exactly what happened. I can't remember. But still, like the Jets moved the ball well on the Rams until they got to the red zone, and then they screwed up. But yeah, Devontae Adams continues to play well, 7 for 68 and a touchdown. Lazard had a drop touchdown, unfortunately, because I had him in so many best ball leagues. Because all I did ever since he went on IR, I kept drafting him in the 20th round just because I knew he'd come back at some point. Like no one was drafting him; he was just going undrafted. Otherwise, I was like, yeah, let me take Lazard in the last round of this. It's like, okay, he's going to come back. Maybe he caught touchdowns from Rodgers early in the season. Maybe he does it again. What am I going to draft in the 20th round? Like some bum who's never going to play. Lazard's actually going to play eventually. So I was really hoping that Gambit would pay off, and it didn't because Lazard just played like crap ever since he returned. But anyway, I thought it was worth a shot. For the Rams, Nakua continued to play well. Kupp struggled for the second week in a row. Kyron Williams looks great. This week, Kyron Williams looks so awesome playing against a Cardinals team that just allowed a lot of rushing yards to Chuba Hubbard. So Kyron Williams just looked outstanding this week. So any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, Kyron Williams, he's a must start. He looks good. He's healthy. yeah, there's not much to say there. Puka Nakua looks awesome. Cooper Cup, man, several people have already asked should we start Cup, and like each time I'm just like, I don't know, man. I talked about it a couple weeks ago. I just like, in the last 3 weeks we've gotten a goose egg from him, and we've gotten 2 games where, he's getting, in standard leagues he's getting 2 or 3 points, and PPR he's getting like 5 or 6 points. You're just like, DFS, that's terrible. You want no part of that. And in season long, if you're still surviving with Cup in your lineup, man, you've made it a long way. Well done. But man, I think it's okay to sit him if you got other options. I've been saying this for a couple weeks in a row now. Something's not right with him, and so it's Puka, it's Williams, and but Stafford's not even a good start. We just like he's not been great the last several weeks. He's been inconsistent. The numbers are not there. I'm not sure Stafford's fully healthy. Has he been on an injury report at all? I don't know if he's been on the report. He doesn't look right to me either. Aaron Rodgers looks good. He should have scored more points in this game, as you said. This was there are a lot of games where like the stats that look better than the actual film looks. Rodgers actually looks better in this game than what the stats say. And so this Jets offense looked a little better, particularly the passing game. And so I feel confident. Yeah, Garrett Wilson, I don't want any he's not good. Like, man, what a bummer. But Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers, Breece Hall, I feel good starting those guys in season-long leagues if I have to. Probably not reaching for those guys in DFS, but in season-long I am.
Yeah, I've no issue playing Devontae Adams in DFS if the Bills have cluster injuries at safety again. That would have to be it. Otherwise, I think he's probably a little too expensive, but I don't think it's the worst play if the Bills
he's 7,100. That's not terrible.
It's okay. Yeah, it's probably what he should be. All right. So last of the early games, we had Lions 34, Bears 17. I don't know if you saw the trick play in this game.
I did.
It was great. If you didn't see it, Goff and Gibbs both pretended there was a fumble. Got through a touchdown pass to Sam Laporta. It was awesome. Every time that Ben Johnson, the coordinator for the Lions, plays against a team that has an opening at head coach, he just unloads these trick plays. It's so funny. It's like a job audition. So great. You have to love the Lions. Gibbs is the other running back I had. I remember I told you I had Connor and Barkley. Gibbs is the third guy. Gibbs was awesome. 109 rushing yards, 45 receiving yards, 1 touchdown. The only bad thing you can say about Gibbs is that he got stuffed at the goal line a few times. He eventually scored though. So you could tell he's not quite the goal line hammer that Montgomery is, but he's just so much more explosive. So you trade one thing for the other. I'd rather have Gibbs anyway. Jameson Williams had an 82-yard touchdown. And then for the Bears, it was only really Keenan Allen. The Lions can't defend slot receivers. I thought Keenan Allen was just a great play in DFS. I played him there in that lineup where I finished, I think, 97th or something. And Caleb Williams came through at the end. I think he was the winner in the SPY in first place. It was I just feel so disappointed in myself that I didn't see that coming because I love Jahmyr Gibbs so much. I figured the Lions would blow out the Bears. But you generally want to play the quarterback who's going to be trailing because they're going to throw the entire game. Whereas if you take the quarterback on a winning team, they're not going to throw that much in the second half. And plus Caleb Williams is a lot cheaper than a lot of the top options. So I think Caleb Williams stacked with Keenan Allen, run it back with Gibbs and Jameson Williams. I think that was the winner in the SPY. So what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I'm not a lot to say. I mean, obviously the Lions look great on offense, but their defense is suspect. And I am thoroughly confident that if the Philadelphia Eagles are healthy in an NFC title game, that they will go into Detroit and beat this team. I'm very confident. I think it's easy. In fact, if you're a Lions fan, you should be very nervous. This team is having a good season. The Lions are having a really good season. I'm not trying to dog them. I'm just I think that defense is very susceptible right now. And so, but of course, from a fantasy standpoint, start your guys. Jahmyr Gibbs is the number one running back in my mind. Looking at the pricing on what is he priced at on DFL on DraftKings this week? So I don't know what he's priced at, but if it's less than 8,000, put him in every lineup. Probably more than 8,000 though, right? Am I guessing?
Yeah, I'll have to go to that right now. I'm clicking in. Jameer Gibbs. No, he's not on the main slate. He's playing Monday Night Football. So
that's right. I forgot. Okay, Showdown. Okay, I forgot about that. But yeah, that makes sense. I would say if he was in the main slate, I'd be all over that. But I guess not. But if you have those guys, start them. Except Goff. Goff's not really a guaranteed start every week, right?
Yeah.
Caleb Williams, I probably wouldn't start him. He paid off, as you said, in certain spots, but I probably wouldn't start him. Probably wouldn't reach for him. Even DeAndre Swift, I'm not sure about this week going into this coming into tomorrow night's game. I'm not confident. He's had some really low scoring games, and so really, as I look at the Bears team, the only player that I feel really confident starting is Keenan Allen, which a month ago, I can't believe it. We would a month ago, you'd be like, dude, you're nuts. He's the only trustworthy option on this team. DJ Moore has no longer trustworthy option. Dunze is not an option that you want. None of these guys are decent options that you would trust. And so, I think to me it's Keenan Allen, and a pretty. I feel really confident about Keenan Allen, and that's about it. Everyone else has a chance for a goose egg that I just can't stomach.
I do like DJ Moore this week in at least DFS. I think he and Keenan Allen are about the same price. And I know Allen has been better recently, but I think he's had better matchups. Seattle has done well against slot receivers. I think that I think they're more susceptible to outside receivers. So I like if their salaries are the same, I'd play Moore. Now, if in the past, Moore has been more expensive, so Keenan Allen would have been the obvious choice there. So plus the Dunze looks pretty good too, salary wise in the showdown on Thursday. So in my showdown lineup, I think I have. By the way, Charbonnet. I will get to him in a second, but Charbonnet is so cheap on showdown because people thought Walker would continue, so Walker got ruled out, and Charbonnet practiced fully. So that's like a cheat code. He's gonna be super highly owned. How does Charbonnet not be the winning captain when he's very cheap? So there's your cheat code. So I'm playing Charbonnet, running it back with Caleb Williams, Dunze, and DJ Moore, and then two other guys. So that's what I'm doing for showdown this week. So we have moving into the late slate: Raiders 19, Jaguars 14. This one was a beauty. The poor Raider fans who brought those tank for Shador signs to the Monday night game versus Atlanta. I don't know what are they doing with those signs now? Is that they burning them? It's really sad. They moved from the number 1 pick to the number 6 pick with this win. Just very painful. At this point, they have to trade up for a quarterback, and we know they want one. They wanted Michael Penix last year. Atlanta screwed them by taking Penix at number 8. So the Raiders either have to once again lose out on a top quarterback, or they have to trade up, and it's just because of this stupid win. Really irresponsible on the Raiders' part to win this game. And it just goes to show if the Raiders were as smart as the Browns and the Giants front offices, then they would have just benched O'Connell and just kept starting Desmond Ridder. Anyway, Bowers looked great. Myers was a disappointment, but O'Connell has been targeting Bowers more than Myers. For the Jaguars, Bigsby retook ATN for the rushing leader. It seems to switch every week. I don't know what Doug Peterson's doing. But Brian Thomas Jr. is the main takeaway here, 9 for 132 and a touchdown. He looks awesome. I think he's he might be second round pick in fantasy next year. What do you think about that and the rest of this game?
Yeah, obviously it depends on. I think it's going to be a little bit sensitive to the offensive situation in Jacksonville. Who's the coach? Who's the supporting cast? I mean, we think it's Trevor Lawrence coming back, but are we 100% sure?
He got re-signed, so it's going to be him.
So, I think that makes a difference. I think Brian Thomas is he's right now, he's a top – he's a wide receiver 1 in terms of talent and opportunity. He's a must-start guy. He's the only guy on this offense that I want to touch. I want no part of the running back situation because we don't know from any given week what's going on. We obviously, and this offense has limited upside, so it's Brian Thomas or nothing. Remember that time Christian Kirk was on this team? Remember that? That feels like years ago, doesn't it?
Yeah, Gabe Davis. Like, remember all these guys?
Oh yeah. Oh man, crazy. Brian Thomas Jr. is great. Yeah, I think he's a top 12 to 14 type guy. Which likely puts him at worst mid third round pick, at best late second. Yeah, he's probably late second to mid third, my guess next year.
I was thinking like mid second, and this guy is so talented. I remember the draft. Everyone's talking about like Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors. Like, this guy has outproduced both of them. And I know Neighbors went nuts in the beginning of the year, and he's had terrible quarterbacking. But like, so has Brian Thomas Jr. He's had Mac Jones for the past month, and yet he just keeps posting these monster numbers. Heading into the draft, I remember thinking, like, I wrote this multiple times. I was like, Brian Thomas Jr. could be like DK Metcalf or even better. Like, he has that potential where like, but he's super raw. And I remember thinking about that with Metcalf, thinking like, I like Metcalf in his rookie year. I was like, I like Metcalf a lot, but he's raw. He's not going to do it much his rookie year. Maybe his second year he can go off, but he had a great rookie year. And so I remember thinking about that with Thomas. I was initially like bearish about him this year. And then I was like, yeah, what if he's like Metcalf? What if he lives up to his potential right away? And so I remember moving him up in my rankings, and I think I drafted him in one league, in Kelly's league. I choose on the show. So I like them more and more, and I think now, I think he goes before those other two receivers in this draft, right? Definitely before Harrison. I think Neighbors depends on what the Giants do at quarterback now. I assume they're going to get Shedeur Sanders, but like, we don't know. I mean, so. Brian Thomas Jr. with Trevor Lawrence, I assume he's going to be healthy next year. Like, he has so much potential. Like, I think he could be a first round pick eventually, not next year, but I think eventually, right. I think he could be a first round pick.
Now, I was answering the question, where do I think he'll go? Not necessarily where I would draft him.
Okay.
So I think he'll be late second to mid third in all likelihood, but I could see myself being higher on him than the market. For sure. Yeah. I still think Malik Neighbors is better than him on talent. Like, I just like watching Malik Neighbors. Like, Neighbors has like a next level athleticism and like go up and get the ball in a way that's like it's kind of unique. What everyone told me Marvin Harrison supposedly had, but doesn't. But if you're going to rank them right now, I still give Neighbors the slight edge. I put Thomas Jr. second, but I think it's pretty close. And then I think there's a gap between second and third, Marvin Harrison Jr. at the third spot there. Now that could change down the road, of course. Situations. At the end of the day, Marvin Harrison was sold as this phenomenal talent, once in a generation talent, but he's not. He's a good player. At the end of the day, though, it's his last name that got him overdrafted. Let's be honest. Like, that's what happened.
Well, here's the question for you. Here's the main question. So, I mean, you just said that you would go, not you would go, but that in order, you'd say it's either it's Neighbors and then Thomas and then Harrison. What about Harrison versus McConkey? Where does that go next year? Who's drafted earlier, McConkey or Harrison, or who would you rather have next year?
That's a good question. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is a better player than McConkey. I think there's a gap there. I think he's clearly a more talented player, and I would trust more talented player going into year two. So I would trust Marvin Harrison Jr. over McConkey, but the offensive situation can make a difference. I mean, who knows what happens with these teams in the offseason?
Yeah. I mean, we know the Chargers will be well coached next year.
Yeah.
I do like Gannon, but I just, like, with Kyler Murray, I don't trust Murray. That's the issue here. Like,
I've already talked about him being a turd. So
yeah. So yeah, it's a lot easier to trust Herbert than him. And I know you don't like PPR, but for PPR, certainly you would take McConkey because he catches like 7 passes every week. Standards, different question. All right, we have Vikings 27, Seahawks 24. This game went back and forth.
By the way, sorry, back 1 second. I had a value play for the Raiders.
Okay.
You don't want any of these guys in DFS. Bowers is too expensive. But Alexander Madison is a value play this week. He's a sneaky value play this week. What do you think of him?
Against the Saints? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it works. You can play him. I'm not excited about it, but you could like. It depends how the rest of the roster construction looks. Like I said, I haven't looked at the slate yet, but like if you're in a situation where, like conversely to last week paying up for the 3 running backs made the most sense. If this week is like paying up for the 3 receivers, or I guess 4 receivers makes the most sense, then you're gonna have to save salary somewhere, and like Madison makes sense as a it's kind of like a cheap option. So
also Raiders defense against the Saints at 2,600.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could play anyone against the Saints. You could play Central High School against the Saints. 2000, I would play them.
Deer Central High.
Shout out to Coach Conway leading the Lancers over the Saints. That's how bad Spencer Rattler is. All right, so we have Vikings 27, Seahawks 24. Yeah, like I said, this game went back and forth. Geno Smith had a chance to win at the end. Couldn't quite lead the team much farther on this penultimate drive, so they had to settle for a field goal that missed. And then Geno and DK Metcalf had a miscommunication on the final drive that was an interception. But outside of this, like the second pick, or like the first pick was pretty bad. Second pick wasn't his fault. Outside of the first pick, he had a really good game, 314 and 3 touchdowns. The running situation was really interesting. I think a lot of people expected Charbonnet and Walker to rotate. Charbonnet only had 1 carry because it looked like he wasn't 100%. And now, like, ironically, Walker's going to be the one missing this game, and Charbonnet's practicing fully. So, as I said before, Charbonnet, great play in the showdown. Jack Smith-Njigba is actually the most expensive player in that showdown slate on Thursday, which is, like, so hard to believe. Like, not really based on recent results, but, like, if you go back a month or a month and a half ago, if you said that, you'd be like, what? Like, what world am I living in? But he's been great. Metcalf has been a disappointment, but Metcalf's been hurt and he's getting healthier. So I do think there's some value with Metcalf being the cheaper option. Vikings, I mean, Jefferson was terrific. Like, Jefferson went so long without catching a touchdown. Like, the fact that he scored last week, I felt like the floodgates were open, and like that's exactly what happened. He was amazing. And Addison was good too. Hawkinson was a disappointment. We had his over receiving yards that didn't hit. But yeah, I mean, Sam Darnold he had a great game. He made some great passes. Although toward the end, he took a sack on 3rd down, but still, he played really well overall. So what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I think the Vikings overall playing good from a fantasy perspective. Darnold's not a good option. Like, you probably got better options. I'm not reaching for him. All of these players in DFS on the Viking side feel expensive to me. You might be able to argue for Addison, but they all feel pricey to me. And in season long, you got multiple. Obviously, if you got Addison, you're starting him. If you got Hawkinson, he had a bad game last week. He's still the start. Like, he could go off. Jefferson. Those are all guys you're starting. Seattle side, I like Zach Charbonnet, and we argued about him back in the summer. But if Walker's out, I think Charbonnet is a great play in both DFS and season long. Geno Smith, by the way, I think proved why he's like he had some really dumb moments in the fourth quarter in this game, and just like he's the kind of guy that like it just makes me laugh when like he didn't he win like comeback player of the year last year?
Yeah,
it's like it's the stupidest thing in the world to me that he won that award, because like what did you come back from? Sucking for a decade? Like what? Like that's like that award is supposed to be for someone who comes back from like significant injury or adversity, or like some like things are out of control that really harm you, and then you're able to like work hard and come back. Like, what did you work hard and come back from? You just like sucked butt for a decade, and then all of a sudden, like we're supposed to like you all of a sudden have one decent season, and you're like, oh, comeback player of the year. Oh, look out! Like, he sucks. He proved he sucks. He proves it like he's barely an NFL starter, and like people who sell him as like a good NFL quarterback, like you don't have eyeballs. Stop it, people. Like this game, like if they had a mediocre quarterback in this game, Seattle wins this game. But they don't have a mediocre quarterback. They have a subpar quarterback, and so lucky for Vikings fans, Geno Smith sucks.
Love these rants. It's 2 years ago, not last year. That he won comeback player. No,
dumbest thing in the world. I mean, I'm bitter about it 2 years later.
To be fair, I'll make this argument. You said one of the things is like something out of your what was your qualifier? You're
Like
like something out.
injury or significant adversity, or something out of your control that really hampered your ability to play.
Okay, so significant adversity out of your control affecting your ability to play. Wouldn't you say the Jets organization qualifies as that?
Getting punched in the mouth and having your jaw broken by your wide receiver in preseason could be a.
Yeah, I think Jets fans would agree. So, anyway, we had this question: Pollard Spears championship game. Yeah, I also have Bucks and McMillan. Yeah, we answered a similar question earlier. Again, look at the injury report. If Pollard is practicing, then play Pollard. If Pollard's gonna be out, play Spears. And then McMillan. McMillan's third on that list. Yeah, so. Yeah, it was someone asked like the exact same question. So good Milwaukee's beast or best beast, I guess. Good luck in your championship. Hey Quacky, how's it going? Looking forward to our Saturday show. All right, so let's go to the next game. Bills 24, Patriots 21. I mentioned earlier the Josh Allen quote where he said, "We're just doing the bare minimum to win." He didn't exactly say that, but he kind of like hinted at it. The Bills, it's funny. The Bills played their like F game here. Like they looked so bad. The Patriots played their A+ game, and yet with 3 minutes to go, the Bills are up 10. That just shows like how much of a like disparity there is between these two teams. James Cook was electric. 11 carries, 100 yards, and a touchdown. It seemed like, and then he had 3 catches, 26 receiving yards, and a touchdown. Seems like any time a Bills running back touched the ball, they did well in this game. And then so with the Patriots, Drake May continues to get garbage time. Like I considered playing him. It was that lineup I told you with Rudolph. It came down to May or Rudolph. And so May actually outscored Rudolph's, but I think he was a little bit more expensive. But I would have paired him with Douglas, who did nothing. Douglas was such a disappointment because we had his over, I think it was like 36.5 receiving yards. He had like 33. I thought it was a great matchup for him. He just didn't come through. Keishon Butte, though, he's had a lot of targets recently. I think he's averaged like 6 targets over the past 4 weeks or 3 weeks. I was looking at it for the Saturday slate. He's only 4,000 on the Saturday slate. That's why I was like concerning him. He's been getting a lot of targets, so I like him in DFS. You're not going to play him in regular fantasy, but if he's 4,000 on the Saturday slate, like you have to consider him. So, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I think everything you said makes sense. Agree. There's not a whole lot of insight I can give you. I do love Douglas in DFS this week. He's not on the main slate though, right? He's on the Saturday slate. Is that right?
Yeah. The Patriots play 1:00 on Saturday.
Yeah. I think he was only 4,000 or something like that in the Saturday slate. Mm-hmm. So I think there's some great value there. I can't imagine it'll be highly owned. In a smaller slate like that with only 3 games. There's 3 games, right, in the slate.
Yeah.
In a 3-game slate, you're playing. You really want to figure out ways to like differentiate. I would imagine Douglas is not going to be super highly owned. Obviously, he'll be more higher percentage owned than if it was a main slate. But I think there's some value there. I'd be looking at Douglas quite a bit, and he's the kind of player give you opportunities to get some other more expensive players. So I like him a lot. Other than that, Drake May is on the waiver wire in our fantasy league in my fantasy championship this week. I've got Aaron Rodgers and Brock Purdy on my roster. But Drake May is on the waiver wire, so maybe I scoop him up. I don't know. I'm undetermined on what my play there. Do I really want to trust my fantasy championship to Drake May? Ugh, that sounds gross.
You should have him on your bench because you should unload everyone you're not going to play and put quarterbacks in your bench to have the tiebreaker for bench scoring.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, is
bench scoring our tiebreaker in that league? I didn't realize that.
I think in the playoffs it is. Well, we have ties in the regular season, which we have to fix. But in the playoffs, I believe it is bench scoring. So okay. You might want to make sure. I'm pretty sure it is, but that's what I do in the championship. Just if you're not going to play the guy, just unload them. All those backup running backs you have, just go away. Just get all the quarterbacks in because they score the most points. So
if by chance we tie,
yeah. No, look, it could happen. I mean, ties do happen. So yeah. Hey Walt, I had a great idea. You should do a halftime show on every podcast episode. Let's get some satanic pedophiles and let's have them dance around, scantily clad. My opponent has Hurts. I deliberately snagged Richardson off waivers to hinder him. That's a good play. It's a good move. He grabbed Geno. Do you think he goes off on the Bears? The Bears have a run funnel defense. I think that Charbonnet is going to have an amazing game. I think Geno can do okay. I don't think he's going to have like a bad week, but I don't think he's going to have. I don't think he's going to kill you. So I think getting Richardson was the right move. All right, so let's get to the next game. Dolphins 29, 49ers 17. Miami, they haven't run the ball well all year. It's because they lost Robert Hunt and Connor Williams. But Devon Achane had an awesome game running. It was like the first game that the Dolphins had a great rushing attack. He also led the team in receiving yards. Just great game. I can't believe that Achane only missed like one game this year. Just so bizarre because he was considered so injury prone. Just goes to show that it's so hard to predict this stuff. Jonnu Smith was awesome again. Tyreek Hill, he dropped 2 passes early. He scored a touchdown to save his owners, but only 3 catches. So he's been a disappointment for most of the season. George Kittle was the only guy. Or I guess Deebo Samuel finally came alive. But if you had him in fantasy, you probably have been eliminated, or you haven't played him just because he hasn't done anything for a while. Kittle was great though, as expected. So what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, Brock Purdy on my bench was a bummer. It didn't kill me. It can't end in a tie. Just that'll be Sass McNabb. Touche. Deebo Samuel decided that he knows how to play football again, but I still don't trust him. He's been absolutely terrible. And so if you have him on your team and you survive to a fantasy title game or a fantasy playoff game, he's probably on your bench. And I don't know what to do with him. I still wouldn't start him this coming. I still don't trust him. I don't trust Jaron Jennings. I don't trust any of these passing options. George Kittle's the only one I trust. I don't trust any of the running backs. So to me, it's Kittle or nothing. Maybe Purdy if you got but Purdy on Monday night against the Lions, I don't love that either. It's a bummer that a lot of talent on this team is just not valuable for fantasy purposes. I guess you could say the same for the Miami Dolphins, right? I mean, it feels like I don't trust Jonnu Smith. He had a good game here, but I don't trust him. We've seen him, even 2 weeks ago he was good in the overtime, but he got no targets in the regulation. And so I just feel like Jonnu Smith, and he's too expensive in DFS now. So I wouldn't want Jonnu. I wouldn't want Tyreek Hill at this point. I don't trust him. I don't really trust any of the running backs other than Achane. This is really the first time Achane really was running, was the primary ball carrier between the tackles. It feels like all year long they've been outside pitches, lateral, kind of like those, kind of like half lateral type pitch, throws, a lot of screens or wheel routes. This is really the first game where they intentionally really committed to him being the in between the tackles, which is maybe the reason why he's been healthy. That's why he's stayed healthy, because they haven't put him in those kind of harder situations. But yeah, I got a question about H in just a second. But when I look at both of these teams, I see a lot of talent and not a lot of trustworthy players. A lot of players that have big names or expected to be good and are expensive in DFS, but I actually think would torpedo your teams. And so I think both of these rosters are chock full of guys that you probably want to avoid unless you absolutely got really good options, or unless you have absolutely no good options. I generally am looking at these players and not interested in them.
Yeah, I agree. I think Achane and Kittle, I think, are the exceptions here. But yeah, I do get your point on Jonnu Smith as well. It just, doesn't seem real, where's this coming from with Jonnu Smith? Where's this guy been, or his whole career? I just don't get it. Yeah, you said you had a question about Achane.
Yeah, we talked about players next year. We talked about McCaffrey and Brian Thomas. Where does Achane go next year?
I'll say this: in best ball, he's been going first round, and first round. So I think probably end first round. I mean, he's he's so electric. Like he can go the distance anytime he touches the ball. He catches a lot of passes, especially in PPR. Like he's going to be pushed up in PPR. Now maybe in standard you go second round, but in PPR he's definitely going first round. Um, and really like if Miami fixes his offensive line, which was a disaster this year outside of Teron Armstead, like HN is going to project really well. And ironically, he's going to be injured all next year. That's what's going to happen.
I predict that I will not own him or even come close to owning him because I think he's going to go really high. I think there's going to be he's ending the year strong. They're going to draft an offensive lineman or sign a lineman. All the right talk is going to come out. We're going to fix the things. McDaniel's going to be a brilliant, mad scientist again. All the beat reporters are going to be talking it up. I think Achane is going to be a top 3 or 4 pick next year in all formats. I think he's going to be at worst top 5. He is the type of guy that people fall in love with. He fits the profile of all the fantasy experts who want to show how smart they are. We think he's better than Bijan, and then you'll forget when he's like the 29th running back next year. They'll conveniently forget that they ranked him higher. I think he's going to rise, and he's going to sneak into the top, which means I'm never going to own him because I could tell you right now there's a dozen guys that I probably will want ahead of him, at least a dozen.
Yeah, well, if he's going top 5, I'm not going to own him. No, second round, I'd consider it. Like it depends where he goes. I think you could be right though. Like I said, best ball, he's been going late first round. Sometimes in mid first round, it's like sometimes you see some weirdo picks. Like I saw like in one of my best ball drafts, someone took like Bo Nix in like the 3rd round. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, why would you spend $20 on this? So it's sometimes like there are strange people in these drafts, but occasionally I'd say like more often than not, he's going like 109, 110, 111. And this is PPR too. So, like the top guys have been like, Saquon Barkley's been going 1 all the time. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Bijan Robinson, Derrick Henry. Those have been consistently the top 5 guys. And then like HN is usually in the next group with like Jameer Gibbs and AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill before, he started sucking, Puka Nacua. Like he's been in that group, but maybe he will be pushed up next year. Like, you could be right about that.
I'm usually right about those kind of things. I'm usually right about everything, Walt. Let's be honest.
I'm
just kidding.
Well, I mean, you are the guy who could bend this time space continuum.
Sure. I am also the guy in 2002 that argued with you that Tony Richardson was clearly better than Priest Holmes.
Well, yeah, I've been on the wrong side of some arguments as well. I told you that Zach Charbonnet sucked back in September. So
you didn't say sucked. You said talentless. I think that was the exact.
That's fair. I'd rather be talentless than suck. So. little bit of upgrade. I appreciate it.
22 years later, I'll never forget the Richardson to Holmes to me. I feel like there are so few players that I've been so confident about that I've been that wrong about. Like I was so confident in Tony Richardson, and the vast majority of people watching this have never heard of Tony Richardson.
Yes, I remember my favorite moment from that. It wasn't during that night where we argued. I remember we argued for like 3 hours that night about it. The first game, the very first game that season, Holmes scored 4 touchdowns, and then I remember you IMing me and were like, "Well, Holmes is never going to do that again."
Well, did he ever do it again? I mean,
I don't know. You might have been right about that. I don't know. No. Priest Holmes is so good. He was awesome. He was a top 3 fantasy pick for a while.
Oh, he was great. He had an unbelievable run.
Yeah, and then Larry Johnson took over, and then and then Herm Edwards ruined his career. Well, it'll be interesting to see how far Tyreek and Waddle drop. Yeah, look, Tyreek Hill's trending into his mid-20s. Sorry, mid-30s. He's has how many kids does he have? Like he said that he wants to retire after his contract. He's gonna have so much child support to pay. Like he's gonna have to play for a new contract. Um, so I don't know. Like he's gonna have to focus more here. Seriously, he had like 8 or 9 kids this year alone. Like we both have 2 kids right now. That's hard enough. I know that he's probably not in these kids' lives.
Yeah, he's in a slightly different stratosphere.
Right. But I'm saying that like it's like so it's so life changing for us to have like one kid, and then eventually a second. He had 8 or 9 this year alone. Like that's insane.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't. Yeah, it's crazy. As far as this question, like I think it depends on what Miami does with this offensive line. The offensive line downgrades they had last offseason like killed this offense. They had to go to because last year they were like bombs away to Hill and Waddle, but this year their offensive line's been so bad they just have to throw these short passes, and it works sometimes. It works against the bad teams because they can't tackle. But if they fix their line, suddenly they're gonna be able to go deep again. And so there's a chance that Tyreek and Waddle are both going to be undervalued next year. So it really depends what they do with their blocking. So, all right.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So Sunday Night Football, Cowboys beat the Buccaneers 26-24. Cooper Rush he looked unstoppable in the first half. Second half, he slowed down a little bit. But the Cowboys, like, it's funny. They kept trying to run. It just never worked against like Vita Vea. Like there's one play like Vita Vea just like body slammed Dowdle. Looks so pathetic. Lamb was great until he got hurt. And then Mike Evans. Sorry, Mike Evans is the one who got hurt. We needed 10 more receiving yards from Mike Evans to get the receiving prop, and he didn't quite get there. He was in and out of the lineup. He looked like something is bothering him. Bucky Irving was fantastic. The Buccaneers were just like trying to get the ball to the running backs as much as possible against that bad Dallas run defense. And Irving was the main guy. He outcarried White 16-3. Although White had 7 catches, so at least he got there that way. So, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, Bucky Irving is obviously the guy here, and I look forward to seeing him next year. I wonder what this offense will look like. Yeah, the Cowboys. Do the Cowboys still have an outside chance of making the playoffs?
No, they've been eliminated. They were actually eliminated on this day, right before kickoff, when Washington won, I believe.
Okay. I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember if they were still outside chance or not. But yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So I think if you're in a fantasy championship game and you own Cowboys players, other than CeeDee Lamb, obviously don't start any of these guys. I don't care what the matchup is. And then in DFS, these none of these guys should be touched either. On the Buccaneers side, I think you got multiple options here potentially, for fantasy, both for season long and DFS. Mayfield is a viable option. Bucky Irving's a viable option. Evans, based on check on the injury report. McMillan's a viable option. I guess Rachaad White is a viable option in PPR if you're desperate. I take that back. He's not a viable option. Don't put him in here. Don't hamstring yourself like that. Yeah. So there's a not a plethora of talent on the Buccaneers team, but some decent options here. And so, yeah, if you've got Mayfield, yeah, I feel good about. I'd feel good about him being my starting quarterback in a fantasy title if I had to roll with him.
Agreed. Just make sure on Evans' status. Like I said, he was in and out of the lineup. So if he's DMP for 3 days, I would just try to look elsewhere. But outside of that, yeah, I mean, I agree. Like it just seemed like they're going to have a great game against Carolina. Like Carolina's defense is so bad, so it's a great matchup for everyone, especially the running backs. All right, so we had our first shutout of the season. Packers 34, Saints 0. So for the Saints, like nothing. I have nothing to say. Like who are these bums? Like Kevin Austin, Dante Pettis. At least I heard of Pettis. Jordan Mims. He was in the winning DFS lineup because it was 5 Packers, and you just needed a very cheap Saints player. So it was Jordan Mims. I think it was Jacobs captain. It was Jordan Love, Packers defense, Packers kicker, and then Jaden Reed, and then Jordan Mims. That was the winning lineup. So that's I hope you started Jordan Mims in your showdown. But yeah, I mean, the positive for the Saints is like there's a chance Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara come back this week, and Marcus Valdes-Scantling as well. So they could actually have like real football players playing this Sunday instead of these bums. So that's just watch out for that. Packers, Jacobs looked great. He had 69 rushing yards. He only played a half. Like they didn't bother with him in the second half, just resting him, correctly so, because it's a short week. And there was no reason to play him in the second half. So, and then Jaden Reed was the leading receiver. Tucker Kraft had a nice game. And then of course, how could I forget Christian Watson? He had 2 carries, but then he got hurt on the second carry. He had no catches. And of course he got injured. I say of course not because he gets hurt a lot. Sorry, Tim Watson. Because we had his over receiving yards prop, and we had Mike Evans get injured on Sunday night, and he got hurt, and he didn't win for us. And then we had Christian Watson over receiving yards prop, and he got hurt, so we didn't win that one.
Well,
so
that one you shouldn't have had. That was a bad bet.
With Christian Watson?
Yeah, he's terrible. Why would you put any? Why would you bet? You must hate your money. You want to separate yourself from your money. Betting on Watson to do anything shouts to me, I have money to burn.
Well, we know that Tim Watson is not going to be angry at me this week. He's going to be angry at Kenny. I don't know if you saw any of the Twitter exchanges. I got in a fight with Christian Watson's dad.
Nice.
Yeah. So I linked to my recap. I said Packers 34, Saints 0, complete dominance by the Packers. Christian Watson gets injured, of course. And so Tim Watson like put me on blast, like saying this guy's classless. Like so we and then he wrote like classless. I quote tweeted him and I wrote brainless. And so we got into like a back and forth. It was pretty fun. And then like people who follow him, I don't know why these weirdos follow him, but like they like jumped on it. They're like, Walter, football is classless. Like it was just like I had so much hate mail coming in from them. It was so great. I had such a fun time trolling these idiots.
You can tag me if you want next time. Tag me and I say betting any money on Watson being good is evidence that you have money to burn. Like just
I'm going. I don't know if you want me to do that. Actually,
absolutely go for it.
You want to start a fight with Tim Watson as well?
Yeah, at the cap is fake. Tag me. I'm tired of this guy. I've said this for multiple weeks in a row. I'm saying it again. I don't trust any of the receivers on this team. Okay, I want to come back to Jaden Reed, by the way, and I want to talk about him for a moment, but I don't trust any of the receivers because you never know who's it going to be. I especially don't trust Christian Watson. He's at the top of the list of guys I don't trust. Josh Jacobs is awesome. Bummer that he got hurt. Seems like everything I read seems like he's going to be okay. They were just being overly precautious because they were murdering the Saints, which that's fine. Is that acceptable to say murdering? I don't know. They were. Anyway,
what do you think this is? I don't care about DK. So I commented that women shouldn't vote on Twitter. like I don't care about. I can't be canceled. It's not possible. I fund my own operation.
That's right.
And I employ myself. Like what's going to happen?
Well done.
What could possibly happen? Yeah, I'm enslaved.
Jordan Love's numbers were not great in this game, but that's because they were beating him. They didn't have to, he didn't have to. So if you have him in fantasy, it's a bummer, but it wasn't his fault. I mean, he's doing what he's supposed to do as quarterback, win games. So, yeah, I would trust Jordan Love in it. I would trust Josh Jacobs. I like them both. I don't think either one are good values in DFS, but not terrible plays. And the Saints, none of these guys that play in this game should be in your lineup, anywhere near your lineup. Oh gosh, terrible. Although Kamara may come back this week, and if you happen to be in a fantasy title like I am, and you have Alvin Kamara on your bench like I do, you might be in a position where you have to consider playing him. I would not do that unless you. I mean, I'd be looking for other options, but yeah, I mean, maybe I should have played him above Joe Mixon. Who knows?
The problem is you have to wait till Sunday, and he may not play.
Right.
So I don't. I would play Mixon over him, even though Mixon didn't produce. So I don't think you should blame yourself for that. So we had Milwaukee's beast Bucks run defense has been stout lately. Yeah, past few years. Can Chuba get it going against them? Man, I hope so. I wouldn't count on Chuba having a good game. Like, first of all, you have the tough run defense. Second, it's a negative game script. At least you would think, because the Buccaneers are favored by 8 points. So you have to think the Buccaneers have a good chance of being ahead. And if they're ahead, the Panthers aren't going to run very much. So I don't think that Chuba is going to have a good game. Sadly. Well, I hope for Milwaukee's beast. I hope for your sake. I hope I'm wrong. I hope you win your championship, but I wouldn't be very bullish on Chuba's chances this week. Yeah. All right, guys. That's it for.
I got two things for you. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, good. Sure.
First, Priest Holmes only once in his entire career scored 4 touchdowns in a game. I just looked it up.
There you go. You're right.
Multiple times he scored 2 or 3, but only once did he ever do 4. So when I said he'll never do it again,
you were right all along.
Okay. Second, I want to ask you about Jaden Reed. We talked about Brian Thomas and Christian McCaffrey, and we talked about who else did we talk about? Where they go next year? Devon Achane.
Yeah.
Jaden Reed. He's going to end up as in standard scoring. He's going to end up as a top 10 receiver, right? Like overall scoring.
Yeah, it's because he's had like 2 big games, and
right.
He's
top 15. Even in PPR, he's going to be top 15, top 18. Mm-hmm. But anyone who owns him knows the ride has not been good. So, where does he end up next year? And could you see yourself, being at where the market is, or you anticipate him being overdrafted?
I think he'll be overdrafted. And I think people remember that Brazil game where he just went insane. Yeah. And that caused him to go so early in the week 2 best ball drafts. The week 2 best ball draft, there was 2 guys who went super early because of week 1. Jaden Reed, who went like end of 2nd round after week 2. And then there was Isaiah Likely, who went fourth round because of what he did against the Chiefs. It just goes to show that there is such great leverage that you can have, like selling, like buying low, selling high in these drafts. Like if you don't overreact, like you can have like a really good team, or the other team's at least going to be bad. Like so Jaden Reed eventually settled in as like a 5th or 6th round pick. And this is PPR, so keep that in mind. And he's better in PPR. So I think it's standard. I think he probably goes 6th round. In PPR, I think he might go 5th round. I could be wrong. If that's the case, I don't mind him in 5th round PPR. 6th round standard, it's not very exciting. Like, again, he's so inconsistent that if like there aren't any injuries on the Packers, it's just so hard for him to stand out because there's so many options. Yeah. Now, if we head into the season and in the preseason, like Watson goes down, sorry, Tim, and then if Romeo Doubs goes down, then suddenly you're going to be like, okay, Jaden Reed looks pretty good because all those targets are going to be consolidated. But if nothing like that happens, then I do think he'll be overdrafted. Like I'd probably take him like 7th, 8th round, maybe. But that's generally like when I start looking at quarterbacks and stuff. So I don't think I'll be getting to him. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he's going to be way overdrafted. I think people are going to be looking at him 6th round. I think will be. I think he'll be a 5th round guy, and maybe even more. Like I think he's another kind of guy that could get a lot of hype, and kind of there's some helium there. But I don't like this style of player. The player that's just has got 3 total awesome weeks, boom weeks, and then some, then 3 or 4 just goose eggs, terrible weeks, and then 3 or 4 mediocre weeks. Like that guy doesn't help you win in fantasy on a week-to-week basis. So I hate those kind of players. I don't want that on my roster. Yeah, so I foresee him going higher. So that's why I wanted to see where you thought he would go and where would you take him.
Okay. Yeah. And we should next week, because people are going to have questions about their fantasy unless like they're playing in the strange league. We should maybe talk about some like where some of these guys will go next year's draft. I think that's like really interesting. Sandra, let's close this out. Kenny, no one plays standard scoring. Well,
Maybe you're right.
we do in our league. We've had this league since 2003. I believe you've been in since like what 05 or 06. You joined in you joined a few years after I did. We've done standard scoring the entire time. It's the only league I do in which there's standard scoring. And like we just got a flex a couple years ago. So like we're not changing anytime soon.
There's a lot of innovations in fantasy football that I'm a big fan of.
Yeah.
PPR is not one of them.
Yeah. I get it, but DraftKings plays PPR, so like you at least have to be familiar with it.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm very familiar with PPR. I just like dogging on it. I recognize it's the default in a lot of platforms. You know, the other league I'm in, that league is it's a bonus. So it's 5 catches in a game, and you get 2 bonus points for every 5 catches. So I think that's much more palatable to me.
Yeah. Well, you feel bad if you had 9 or 4 and you don't get a point.
Yeah.
That's kind of sucks, but yeah.
I hate the guy. I hate the guy that's like a receiver who's totally decrepit. He's terrible. But he gets 3 dump off passes for 12 yards. Like, okay, like that guy, like that's not worth 3 points. Like that's dumb. Like, or the mediocre slot receiver who gets 6 catches for 28 yards in a game. And I'm like, that's worth 6 points. It's worth a touchdown. Like these 6 meaningless catches. Like it's 3rd and 15, and he gets a 6-yard catch. That's useless. Like that doesn't help anyone. Why are we rewarding that garbage?
Yeah. Well, I'm in one league that gives points per carry. So
I would protest.
That kind of like blew my mind. I'm like, wait, these scrambling quarterbacks are worth a lot more here.
Listen, in 2020, I was adamantly against these quote unquote protests of people burning down buildings in 2020. But if I were in a league where you're getting points per carry, I might burn down the target. I'm just saying, I might burn down a grocery.
Oh man, that's awesome. It's a great way to end the show here, week 17 on Christmas. So, all right, guys.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys, for watching, commenting. Really appreciate it. So, Kenny, do you have any last words here, or do you want to plug your site, thecapisfake.com?
Thecapisfake.com. Check it out. I got lots of old articles, nothing brand new. I have worked on a few projects. At some point in the spring, I'll get to them. I did work a little bit on the Kirk Cousins situation. I did look at his contract and want to do a little write up. What's the impact of this, and how do they get out of it? At the end of the day, it's Arthur Blank's money, and let's not feel bad for billionaires. And let's not feel bad for Kirk Cousins. People will be sympathetic toward him, like, oh, I can't believe this happened to him. He'll be just fine, guys. I promise. Yeah,
we could not feel bad for billionaires, but for the guy out there with $999,999,999.99, let's feel bad for him. He's hurting a little bit. So, all right, guys, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. We will be back tomorrow after the last Thursday game of the year with Andy Isco breaking down the week 17 picks against the spread. And then Saturday with Tom making his triumphant return after last week's hiatus. So looking forward to that. So yeah, guys, once again, thank you so much. We will be back on Thursday. And yeah, have a great night, guys. And I'll talk to you later.
You the man, Walt.
You the man.